Greetings, everybody, and welcome to the Chess Dojo's coverage of the 2024 World Chess Championships between Liren and Indian prodigy Gukesh Dommaraju. Wow, some of you were super ready. If you are new to chess and you don't know what you're doing here, prepare to have your mind blown. This is going to be a little window into World Championship level chess that we are going to have for you today. This is a 14-game match. It has already been going for about 10 days. And today we are getting into game 9 with the match tied 4-4, one win each, 6 draws. The last 2 games in a row, I would say, have been really, really exciting and tense. Maybe even the last 3 games in a row, but certainly the last 2 have had the feature that Gukesh got a great position out of the opening and was essentially borderline winning the games at some point and was not able to win after incredible defense from his opponent. Today it looks like he's got a classic Catalan for the first time in this match. Just classic, straight up D4 move order, G3, yes. One of the openings that these two can play with both sides is the Catalan. And there was like a potential that this match could have had a ton of Catalans. Instead, some might say we've beaten around the bushes for 10 days, before finally coming here. Who knew which of them would play the Catalan first? It would have been possible for them to play a whole match of Catalans back and forth, just as it would have been possible for them to play a whole match of Gioco Pianos back and forth. Those are the 2 openings that they can really both play a ton from either side. We've only had one Gioco Piano, I think, and one Catalan because Gukesh has followed the plan he was predicted on, varying his opponents, his openings nonstop. And here we are. Good old Catalan, classic tier 1 opening. Ding has thrown in an important move in the opening, bishop b4 check here. Kind of a Bogo Indian move order, but classic. Once you know your opponent's playing the Catalan, he could also, there's a more traditional move order where you play d5 and then white plays either knight f3 or bishop g2. For our purposes, we don't really care which. Then you give the check and come back. That's the more traditional move order for the bishop b4 to get thrown in. But he threw in the check, and Gukesh didn't seem to give it too much thought, continuing to a Catalan move order. Now, why does black throw in that check? Because this bishop... Oh, you're starting already with me, chess.com. Because the bishop on d2 would like to go to b2 and would actually stand better on c1 than on d2, because the plan is to go b3 and bishop b2. Here the bishop is in the way of the queen defending the pawn, and it's just in the way, period. So that bishop b4 check is an important part of how black defends the Catalan. Queen c2 from Gukesh. Ding is playing a closed Catalan, whereas, for anyone wondering, the open... all this stuff worked on chess.com 10 years ago. 10 years. 10 years later, and what... And, the world is as it is. The open Catalan is characterized by black taking on c4. Sometimes white can recapture the pawn. Sometimes white can't recapture the pawn, and it becomes a gambit. And the closed Catalan is characterized by black defending the pawn on d5 rather than taking. Knight bd7 from Ding, rook d1 quickly from Gukesh, and b6. Bishop c3. So they're in Gukesh's prep and Ding's as well. He's only spent a couple minutes. He was just picking what he wanted to do. They both play this with both sides, so we have a pretty good chance of getting some opening theory today, as we have not done on any other days. All right, and now I will, they're bashing out moves, but I will now greet my friends here in the chat. Hello, Investing Ideas and Jack Gleason, who were super quick to be here today. Crossy Road Daily, the fastest. Matt Chess, wondering what am I doing today. They started on time. They just bashed it out fast. Good morning, Ingemund. Good evening, Pepsi Cola. Lots of meetings for Lucas today. Sorry to hear that. I know the last thing anyone wants to do when they go to work is a lot of meetings. All right. Asher's given us a like. We have 1 like on our YouTube stream. Yes, cha-ching. Morning, Christoph and Hayden. Hayden says that today Gukesh will break through and win. They have a rest day between every 3 games. After the last rest day, they played 2 games, both of which were winning for Gukesh and not quite able to convert them. Today will be the 3rd in a row of those games. But it's going to depend on a whole wide variety of factors. You know, what Gukesh got in the last 2 games were clear opening advantages. It'd be really rare to get that 3 times in a row, but we'll see. You know, at some point, Ding's going to out-prepare you. Ding's team's going to out-prepare you, you know? All right. Thank you, 2800. I am planning to recover my health at some point, but in the meantime, I'm glad you appreciate the gift of it. All right, and over on YouTube, on Twitch, of course, we've got my good old buddy Spinal Tap Chess, Steve Nash's workout. Hey, Steve Nash. Magya Zerker, hi. How is Gukesh not ahead yet? It's been pretty surprising the last 2 games that he hasn't won, Magya Zerker, for sure. Pretty surprising. I thought with the positions he had the last 2 games, yeah, there was a pretty high likelihood he would win a game. All right. My Berserker, I made an effort to be nice right there. They were both hard to convert for sure on New Karma. They were both they both included absolutely epic defense from Liren, both of those games. That said, Gukesh is so good, it did seem like very likely that he would win one of those games, you know, if not both of them. So there was some surprise involved for me. Okay. Ding is probably more known for the Catalan than Gukesh. Yes, Clarky, because Ding plays a more narrow repertoire. So the openings he travels, he's traveled them again and again more often than Gukesh has, because Gukesh, first of all, he's younger. He's played chess in tournaments less than half as long as Ding. Second of all, while playing, he's divided his attention between literally every single opening. So he's definitely not going to have the experience in any opening of Liren. That said, I think this is a quite good opening of Gukesh's, the Catalan. So we see Ding thinking here against this early bishop c3. It's an interesting move. It's kind of dissuading c5. It's encouraging you to steal the pawn, and it's encouraging you to play knight e4. The main plan of what Black was up to, by the way, is to go bishop a6, rook c8, and then c5. But there's also a secondary plan where you push the a pawn, and then play bishop a6, which is also a reasonable secondary plan. Bishop c3 encourages Black to think about grabbing the pawn or playing knight e4, which each are their own plans, What's Grandmaster Naxon's prepared text, Elon? I'm a friend of Artur's. I'd love to know what he was on about. Hikaru says he doesn't blame Gukesh for 3 errors starting with knight AC4 in a row last game. Wow, I didn't know it was 3 errors in a row. All I knew was that knight DC4 looked better because with bishop E6, rook C8, I wanted my rook defended. And from the reactions of the players, the chat, Jesse's analysis with me, I think I was correct on that, but I don't know about the other errors. Ding is a really good Catalan player. Skibix, yep. Ana Kurma didn't see how knight AC5 was a blunder. Yeah, basically Ana Kurma, because after white attacks the knight on C5, when you play rook C8 to defend the knight, the rook on C8 is undefended when there's a knight on D7 in the way. So, anyway, we're not gonna get into a big old analysis of yesterday's game because we're gonna have enough on our plate with today's game. So let's start talking a little bit about the opening choice here. Somebody tells me that bishop c3 is quite a rare move that's only been played 3 times, and that is just exactly the kind of surprise move that Gukesh has been looking for and that his seconds have been looking for. You can recognize it. It's like that rook e1 in the Catalan, in the pseudo-Catalan Grunfeld 2 days ago, right? He's looking for a position where there's like 5 or 6 or more reasonable moves, and he can play one like way down the list that will have less theory and less chance that his opponent has explored it. He's not necessarily looking for a move that creates a new advantage, just a move that, is an unusual move order, basically. And as Spinal Tap says, bishop c3 is a pretty normal idea. I was not at all excited about this move. I just thought it was a normal move. Surprised that somebody in chat says it's such a huge novelty in this particular position. Because it is so super normal. And if it's unusual, it's going to be unusual because of d takes c4. And if d takes c4 is the critical move for Ding, he's probably going to play it eventually, even though he's going to think about it for 20 or 30 minutes, possibly. So yeah, there's 2 invitations, 2 heads talking. One is to go knight e4, hit the bishop before white can play knight d2. And white's going to save their bishop, I think. Right? And then you play f5. And you'll transpose to this pawn structure. With b6, actually, f5 is less of a plan, probably. Acratic seems to know that d takes c4 is a mistake. That's an incredible amount of confidence so quickly into the game, Acratic. How do you know that d takes c4 is a mistake? Have you seen one of these games like Giri Niemann or something? D takes c4 was correct by Ding in Gukesh's previous white game 2 days ago. The clues in the database let you know the 3 little data points we've got. All right, so let's talk about this f5 idea for 1 second, and then we're going to talk about dc4. So it is a major idea for black in this opening to transpose to a stonewall structure and grab all this space. Chess.com, I just want red pawns so I can show people the pawn structure. So this structure here, grabbing space, it's a typical transition for black to make in the Catalan. However, usually in a position when you haven't yet committed to b6, like a move or two sooner. And here, I can probably trade on d5 and just immediately win the game, because c6 is hanging, and if you go here, c6 is still probably hanging, and black drops their pawn structure, right? So, okay, so that's one invitation that clearly doesn't work, and I guess it's more relevant in a position like this. If white plays bishop f4, which is a major move order, then I think sometimes you'll see like knight h5, bishop c1, f5, like that. You know. Okay. So rook d1, b6, bishop c3, and now it looks like knight e4 is not anything special for black after bishop e1. So nothing about bishop c3, you know, specially threatens or forces black to take. But by blocking the queen's recapture at this stage, it really suggests that black could get away with this. So let's see what Gukesh might have in mind if Ding takes the pawn, which is surely what Ding is calculating. Akratic shares with us that Hans Niemann played knight e4, and Akratic did Geary win the game, the knight e4 game? Oh, yeah, I have to agree, Sean. I have to agree with Asher on that one for sure. You can play any opening you like, and it's normal when you try a new opening to lose a couple games. And it doesn't have to do with how good you are. You just need to get better at that particular... You have an overall chess level, but you also have like different chess levels. Like I'm better or worse at, you know, calculation, visualization, seeing simple tactics quickly, seeing long tactics in 30 minutes, knowing when to stop and think, recognizing critical moments, playing out knight. But then there's also, within all this, it's also for every structure, you have a different like rating level, you could say, right? Like you got a certain rating level for the French structure and another for the Ruy Lopez, et cetera, et cetera. So when you play a new opening, at first you're going to be a bit worse at it than you are at all the openings you already know. So there's going to be like a new learning curve each time with a new opening. You just have to get through it, you know. Same with endgames. There's all kinds of endgames, and everyone's going to be better at either rook endings or king endings or bishop endings or something. And then at some point, you know, you work on and level up a new type of endgame or a new type of opening. So Hans won the game, Matt Chess says, with black. Wow. And apparently there's a game where Esipenko played the very, very solid bishop b7. I think we're going to look at Anu Karma's suggestion of knight e5 here, because that was my suggestion as well. Okay, so Hans won the game playing knight e4. Interesting. Did I play Hans at the mechanics? Yeah, Sizzle Biscuits. Not in tournaments, just sitting around on... Just hanging around at the mechanics. You know, because at the time he was like 1200, you know, so we wouldn't have met in a tournament. But, yeah, I did just play tons and tons of people hanging around to help them practice. Just being nice. Which he was not in return. Okay, so the most obvious move, I think, would be what Anu Karma suggests. Let's have a quick look at knight e5. So that pawn is terminally attacked twice. Not by the bishop attacking the knight, obviously, chess.com. Okay, by these two pieces. So it can't be defended, so you got to try and trade. Then pawn takes, your knights attack, your pawns attack, your queens attack. This is not going well for black. I think Ding could have rejected dc4 really quickly now that I'm looking at this. Position looks straight up bad. If you go knight d5, there's e4 winning material. And if you go knight d7, then white recovers the pawn with a very, very pleasant, strong position here for white. And the move queen a4 might even win the game. I don't know if it does or not. But it looks quite rough for black. And even if it doesn't win the game, there's any number of moves that white could play here because these pieces are a little tied up. I guess black has queen c7 to untangle if we don't do something clever. So probably queen a4 is the move. Do we need to calculate more to know that Ding has rejected this already long ago? I don't think so. I'm going to say like we can just skip it, guys. You know, nobody here's dying for a super long sidetracking calculation once I already tell you that the line is probably irrelevant to the game, right? Yeah, Daniel, that is correct. He did. He had incredible fighting spirit. Okay. So, we're being told that the prior games here, with pretty good players, like Neiman and Estepenko playing black, that we've seen a5 and bishop b7. Those would be the standard moves in this position had Gukesh played b3, by the way, which would have been probably the standard move for Gukesh in this position. I don't know the opening theory by heart, folks. I'm just saying there's a very high chance that b3 is one of the standard moves here for white. Probably bishop f4 is one of the other. Those are probably two of the most played moves in this position, whereas bishop c3 is apparently quite a bit down that list. I don't know for sure, but you know, let's say he played b3, which is pretty reasonable. Then I would guess that, you know, a5 is one of black's main moves, and bishop b7 is another one of black's main moves after b3. So after bishop c3, those are going to be main moves as well. Bishop b7 is always going to be quite a solid move. The idea is to quickly play rook c8 and c5 unless white comes up with something very concrete to prevent you. And so knight d2 could be played, rook c8, e4, and then maybe takes, c5. Here we might get a taste of the bishop on c3 with the move d5. All right, we've got Ding's choice already. He was ahead of us. He played this bishop b7 move that we're just starting to look at. Okay. And immediately, Gukesh plays knight bd2, which is the first move we were looking at here. And now black needs another consequent move, although Ding, you know, probably predicted knight bd2. He might play it quickly, his next move, conceivably. So Anu Karma says maybe he could play c5 now without rook c8, right? That makes a lot of sense. So let's have a look. I mean, I think Spinal Tap, he's playing about 20 minutes just about on bishop b7. So anytime he's surprised in the opening, yeah, he's got a plan to invest some time every time that he's slightly impressed. The bishop b7 will eventually have an open diagonal for sure, Achilles. Yeah. There's already a pawn on c4, so that's more or less guaranteed, unless white answered bishop b7 with an immediate cd5. That would have been the only way to keep this bishop from getting out, pretty much. So Ding is out of theory on this, asks Coffee Acorn. I think so. He'll still know all the themes, and he'll know what all the candidate moves are, right? Like, better than me. And you saw that I know what subset of moves black should look at on each move and white should look at on each move, more or less, right? He's going to know that even better. And there will be a lot of specific positions he knows, which is what I don't have. But he doesn't have a specific sequence of moves that he's memorized against bishop c3. There may be lines where he could transpose. Like, bishop c3, bishop b7, knight bd2. In this position here, like, let's say Gukesh had played b3. Maybe that would have transposed to b3, bishop b7, bishop c3. So it's always possible that it literally transposes to something Ding knows by heart, as long as Gukesh is playing a series of moves that are normal-looking moves here. And so here, Ding, as I said, he plays his next move in a minute, so he had expected knight d2. I find it odd that he doesn't play these moves, like, instantly occasionally, when he spends 20 minutes on knight d2, and then you play the move he expects. He often spends another 2-3 minutes instead of just banging it. But the idea of queen c7 is to defend the bishop. So if white plays e4, before you have a chance to play c5, which Gukesh did not do. He played rook a c1 already. He's looking like he's quite likely still in prep, but you can go here, 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 and then push d5. c5, because your bishop's defended. And, the sharpest line for white will be this, and black probably has knight f6 followed by taking. And they're doing okay. With this queen trade, I defended the pawn, so I didn't hang it. And you might say, hey, David, you said Gukesh had an amazing advantage last white game with the pawn on d5. But here, black's development is freer, and white doesn't yet have the bishop pair. So that's the difference. Although even this looks like slightly better for white, because the knight's going to lodge on c6. Interesting. Anyway, that's not what he went for. He went for rook c1, but that's the basic reason for playing a quick queen c7 move order versus something like rook c8. If you go rook c8, white plays e4, probably. And if you go knight e4, d e4, queen e4, then you can't immediately get that freeing c5 move. And if you commit to knight f6 to get the queen off of this diagonal, she's got multiple squares she could go to, but let's say she just drops back to e2. Now when you play c5, you lose a pawn. So now you have to do stuff like working on engineering c5, like queen c7. And different things can happen while you're trying to do it. Sometimes white even plays c5 as a pawn sack to block in your bishop, but we're not going to go down super long roads. I just want to give a little taste of what it's like to play these positions in a game for these players. They have to look at a certain number of little, wrinkles in the opening, like do I take, do I queen, do I rook? And here notice I'm taking with the knight first, because if you play pawn takes e4, sometimes white plays knight g5. So just something to keep in mind. Yeah, Yojimbo, we've got a straight up 1d4 move order into the Catalan. So we had 8 or 9 moves of big theory, and the possible rumblings of maybe we'll get, a super theoretical game with 20, 25 moves of theory like you normally get in super GM games, but not so far in this match. But Gukesh had just a slightly unusual move order here on move 10 with bishop c3 before b3 or bishop f4. or bishop e1. And that seems to have taken Ding off of his memorized lines. That said, we're very much in a structure and a pattern where the players know what they are up to. So, Lamy against Fedorchuk is the last remaining game in Lumbra's database here and Matt Chess's database. All right. Thank you very much to the database hounds for keeping us oriented at the beginning of the game to, how rare are these things and who's played them and how did they do. That's really, really interesting information. It's really very few games. Those are, again, good players, though. The only players who've ever played this position with bishop c3, all 3 games seem to have been, quite strong grandmasters. So, what's rook a1 saying here? Yeah, I think he's played it so fast that Gukesh must still be within his prep. Asher, in general, c5 is a very clearly indicated positional idea for black. As in, 100% black should play it. Strategically speaking, it's just a matter of timing it right. And Lumbra's database is quite updated. Okay, so basically c5, you're saying it could make white's bishop better. c5 is going to make all 4 bishops better, Asher. Right? Because by detonating the entire center... Jeez Louise, come on. By getting rid of all these pawns, you make both of black's and both of white's bishops better. There's not one person or other who's being favored by that. But if you let white eventually play, b4 and c5 or e4 while you're still on b7, white's bishops are going to be a little bit better than yours because white's going to have more space than black. So the really key point is that c5, c5 equalizes the space, and that's why it's 100% indicated for black. Yeah, right now white's rooks have the jump, right? So it could feel a little scary for black to play c5. Again, you'd have to calculate some specific lines to see whether the rook's influence is a problem or not if black goes c5 right now in the game position. But c5 is the normal positional idea. So as I said, it's just a matter of timing. Maybe black needs a rook on c8 before they play c5, or maybe they need a rook on d8. The moves that Ding is going to be considering in this position are basically he'll calculate c5 for a while, and if it's not good, he'll look at rook fd8 and rook ac8. Those are kind of the moves, okay? So I can show you the candidate moves for black, more or less. But as far as his plan, his only plan is c5, basically. Pretty much the only plan. And in this position, a5 might be borderline playable, but it's probably maybe the 4th best looking move. But it's a little off to the side now because it feels like white's going to get a pretty good e4 if you go a5 here. You've already committed your bishop to b7, not a6. White hasn't played a line with b3, nor does it look like white's going to play b3. So you're not going to engage with a5, a4, and develop your rook that way. So I really don't see why we would play a5 here. Do I think Gukesh is getting an advantage or not really by playing so many different types of openings versus Ding? I think he's getting an advantage, Daniel, yeah. It's allowing... The fact that Gukesh is comfortable playing every opening is allowing him to try out different surprise moves all over the place, right? Like rook e1 2 games ago, like bishop c3 today. You can only play... let's say you've got this idea to play bishop c3 in this position and change the game up a little bit. You can only do that... Rook fd8 played. You can only do that if you're comfortable playing all kinds of different Catalan positions, right? And, if you were just an e4 player, you can't go for this idea because your opponent could play any number of different openings where you'd feel uncomfortable. So you have to be a jack of all trades, comfortable in all structures, to use all the different weapons that Gukesh is deploying in this match, you know? And is he getting an advantage? I mean, we can just look at, you know, who's gotten an opening advantage in this match. You know, and it's Gukesh has gotten an opening advantage the last couple games. So I think things recover just fine, Matthew. What do you think? He hasn't lost a game since then, despite getting some bad positions. He had some real gut checks in defending the last 2 days when he got bad positions, which were not necessarily even because he played badly. It was just Gukesh played so well the opening and middle game the last 2 games. I thought his play was reasonable, but, you know, he drifted into bad positions straight out of the opening, and then those positions, you know, became even more critical. Gukesh put tons of pressure, played really, really well both games until he was winning, you could say, and then the conversion was shaky, and Ding played well all game. And he dug deep for the defense when he was literally losing, basically. Okay. So, his move was rook fd8, not c5. If you want to know why he played rook fd8, which it looks like he spent, I don't know, a couple minutes on. Chess.com's not telling me right now, but, I mean, it wasn't like a blitzed move, nor a long think. I feel like it was 2 to 3 minutes, maybe. I don't know. So he probably calculated c5 a little bit, and there may be something he didn't like here. Shall we have a look to see if we can figure out what it was? Basically, before you choose rook c8 or rook d8, you do it by calculating c5. The only way for us to understand the position is to calculate c5 every move. Oh, look at Gukesh thinking after rook d8. Yes, Yojimbo. Thank you for not wanting to jump on saying that Ding's in time pressure today. He can get down to 20 or even 15 or 10 minutes if he needs to get to a middle game around move 25 to 30. That's clear enough for him, and he can play very good chess off of, you know, a minute or 30 seconds a move. Absolutely. Game 3, I don't think the time really messed him up. He was straight up losing. He was down a piece, and Gukesh was playing well. I think he flagged in game 3 because Gukesh was just beating him, and there was no way out of being beaten. I consider game 3 like he just got beat, not he flagged. I mean, he flagged, but I mean, he lost on the board, not on the clock, game 3, in my opinion. E4 is critical here. Yeah, E4 is critical. Let me just calculate C5 for 1 second first. So, what might he have done against this move? Let's say he trades. Black takes back. Now he'd have takes, winning a pawn. I think. Because if black recaptures, b4 is going to sort of win the game. Does that make sense, folks? This variation I'm just trying out here. This is why didn't Ding play c5 last move variation. So if you recapture with bishop or pawn, either way, I think after b4, you're going to be busted on the c file. If you had the rook on c8, you'd have the move knight e6, by the way. So you wouldn't be busted. Rook c8 would matter, even though it looks like the queen's already completely doubled up on. I'm just looking for a second if black could sack the pawn, right, and just play a5 here. Because this is a nice bishop white's just given black. But after takes, the knight can't recapture, and black's structure gets busted too. So, yeah, I'm going to say that's not good, which means when white takes on c5, I think black cannot take with a piece. I think they need to recapture with the pawn. And then they get this hanging pawn structure. Like this, maybe. And so it's a small structural deficit for black. It would be playable. It would be playable, this position, but not fully quality, I want to say. It might be like plus 0.2 for white or something. Okay. That's a bit of a guess, right? But that's what I'm here to do, is just to make some guesses. Sorry, and I have to check. Okay, so that's a little bit the feeling of c5. Now we can look at the critical e4 move, supposedly, for Gukesh in the current position. I think that gives us like a sense of maybe what Ding didn't want when he didn't play c5. Okay? So 0.02 would be quite okay for black. Maybe I misspoke, Francois. I think plus 0.2 for white. This kind of position here with the hanging pawns here. So from a certain perspective, that is playable, reasonable, normal. But not everybody would necessarily want that. You know, there are some people who might feel slightly uncomfortable playing this position here as black, I could imagine. Okay, so let's go rook fd8, and let's look at e4 for Gukesh here. Gukesh has played b4 instead. Oh, interesting move. So this is like a big theme, right? If black doesn't play c5, that white can try and go b4 and c5. And then black will be, well, we'll have a real thing to work on, right? With the bishop and the space disadvantage. So b4, and it also kind of cuts down on the c5 move a bit. There's several ideas this introduces. Ay, ay, ay. Ay, ay, ay. Were you thinking b4 would be a good move here, Asher? This is why he didn't play b3 earlier, Coffee Acorn says. Yeah, this is like a real theme. It's thematic for how Gukesh has started. Like, it goes with all his previous moves. They're going very, very well together. So one has to understand that this is kind of a precarious moment for Ding, actually, you know, like precarious, like he could drift into like a 0.3, 0.4 opening advantage for Gukesh. Not precarious like he's going to get checkmated or anything like that yet, right? But like Gukesh is threatening to get an opening advantage. All his moves work well together, and he's basically come up with a line where probably there's only one way or very few ways for black to get to something more like equality. Okay? Achilles thinks that b5 could be playable here, just blocking white's c3 bishop and going for a locked game. So that would probably, white would play c5 then, Achilles. And then actually there's an important question. Often black plays a5 in those positions, and white has to play a3, and then black plays, you know, rook a7, rook a8, trades on b4, and trades off some pieces. Here, because the bishop's already on c3, black can't play a5, I don't think, because white would take it. which means white's going to be able to play a4, black's going to have to play a6, and white's going to have the jump, so to speak, control of the tension on the a file. Plus, there's a plan with e4 as well. So I think that b5 may seem surface playable, but it's probably bad for black. Again, I'm not the biggest expert on this structure, so excuse me if I'm less experienced than you, Achilles, or anyone else in chat, and if I'm totally wrong on this. I'm also not at full strength, so to speak, when I spend a lot of time reading chat instead of calculating myself, right? But my sense here is that the bishop on c3 is stopping e5 and a5, so black's not going to gain a good pawn break and any good tension, and white is going to be the one potentially playing e4 and a4 and controlling this position. The space advantage, if you get the tension as well for white, I think white could have a really considerable advantage here. My take. I think the critical move might still be c5 here. That's what I would calculate first if I were in Ding's shoes. Oof, Francois. Oof. Yeah, I don't have a lot of experience playing closed formations either, Achilles. You know, there's all those Slav positions, right? Where white plays c5 and black plays like a5 and white plays a3 and, you know, bishop a6 and they trade the light squared bishop. I think that line was debated by Anand versus Carlsen. So I don't know if you recognize what I'm talking about there from like a Slav defense. So it's not g3 bishop g2. You know, white's bishop is on e2 or d3 or something. And I never really understood those positions. You know, but if you compare them to what we would get here with b5, c5, in those positions, black had some control over the tension, and they traded off the bad bishop from b7. And even there, I know it is. Thank you, 2800. And even there, you know, white still had some tricks and some stuff to play for. Here, I think black would really have a tough time if white's able to play c5. Now, I don't know if white can for sure play c5 against any move other than c5 for black, but I would say it feels like a positional threat for white here already, even if black doesn't play b5. So I'm thinking we gotta calculate c5, man. I've got a chessboard out here too, but I'm trying to create like a weird endgame study on it. So I'm getting my sleep in, like, you know, a few little chunks here and there, as some of you know, or maybe all of you are aware. And today, I woke up at 2 p.m. from like 3 hours of sleep, and I had like this weird idea for an endgame tactic / study, like, you know, study around a weird tactical idea. And it involves hanging a bunch of pieces with check and some kind of weird promotion, a couple little promotion tactics. And I set it up and it doesn't work yet, but maybe if I tinker with it, I can make it work. So my chessboard is occupied with that at the moment. It was a weird thing to wake up with. Yeah. The little chunks of sleep are causing me to... Sometimes I lie in bed, like, going over the game that's been played instead of falling back asleep, which is annoying because I only have a narrow window to try to fall asleep. And other times I wake up with really weird stuff I've been thinking about. I think, yeah, my body doesn't know what it's doing. Yojimbo says c5 is basically a forced move. You know, Jimbo, if you glued yourself and Jesse together, you would say, you got to play c5. What are you thinking about? Right? That's what Jesse would say here, right? What are you doing, Ding? You can't let white play c5, so you know you're going to play it. Stop trying to calculate what Gukesh is going to do after you play c5 and just play it without any calculation. That would be more or less Jesse's take, perhaps, to just do it. Why calculate, the critical move that has like a million calculations possible? That's hilarious, Asher. I don't know how to set that up. A position where your own pieces stalemate yourself. That's really funny. Okay. Oh, there are some positions where I guess like you pack your pieces in and then you close them up with the pawns walking into them from behind afterwards, huh? Usually I'm a great sleeper investing ideas in the sense that I have a sleep deficit and sleep deprivation, and any chance I get I fall asleep. But the excitement over this chess match plus like the weird schedule it's maybe the first time in my life that I've lain around not falling asleep the moment I have a chance. We're going to calculate c5 even though Jesse wouldn't approve of us doing it in game. He would approve of us doing it as commentary. So let's say we take. There's no b4 to attack any piece here. Here takes looks playable. Takes looks awkward. Rook in center is big. What? Who? What? Huh? Bam. Okay, this doesn't work. I guess there's a good thing there's a knight on f3, but I think black's lost here. Also, some pure interference move like this would be enough here to push black off the ledge. Bishop c5. Takes. So on king f1, there's knight e3 winning. On king g1, there's queen b6 winning. Oh no, queen c5, huh? I was going for, I was going to say king e1, queen b6 is the line we really have to calculate. But I guess either way, queen c5, huh? Here there's knight e3 because the bishop's hanging. Knight e3 wins. Oh, sorry, we have to trade queens because our queen's hanging. Sorry. Maybe skipped a step. Oh my god, this move saves white. G5. Did everyone see that coming? Maybe E4 from black, huh? This didn't work out for black. This is a pretty critical line. Oh, I see what you mean, Daniel. Yeah. Yeah, myself also, I have the experience of not falling asleep quickly after games I play because I'll be revved up. Yeah. So yeah, I would need a schedule with like an hour or two after my game, but I wouldn't necessarily. Yeah, I wouldn't be up till 3 a.m., but I would need an hour or two to wind down. Yeah, Dances with Boars. You're absolutely right. C5 is what Gukesh is intimating he wants to play next. Yeah, O'Donnell, when somebody's sick during a tournament, they cannot play their best, period. Even if you feel like, okay, I'm thinking okay, I'm calculating okay, blah, 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 you're never really playing your best when you're sick. And it happens to everybody that there are some events where they're sick. It's one of the things we can't know when we're watching a tournament from home, right? Like if you see somebody and in a certain year they've got 5 good tournaments and 1 bad one, you don't know if the bad tournament was just that they were sick, you know? That could be it. And we're talking, you don't have to be very sick for it to affect your play, right? Like, okay, if he were so sick he had to go to the hospital, he'd go to the hospital, they'd delay the match, right? But if he just has, you know, a cold and a cough and congestion like me, he'll just have to keep soldiering through and he won't be able to play his best. That's just how it would go. Then there's many options of what we do once we play Dancing with Boars. 100% we want to play c5. Very likely Dancing with Boars, you then follow up with e4 actually. Opening the center once black can't get the bishop through this diagonal. Because normally when you play e4, black's going to trade and then play c5, opening up the bishop and countering play. So you play c5, you leave black stuck with a bad pawn on c6. It blocks up their own pieces. It gives them what's called, you know, a cramp or a lack of space. And then probably you play e4 as white as one of your main plans. But you've got many options once you've gotten the pawn to c5. Many options. So we're still calculating c5 for Ding here. Yeah, Sean, that does give some context on Tal because, yeah, if you assume that he was playing below his best basically at all times, then it's mind-boggling. Musical Neptunian. My chess level has gone down. There's all kinds of different reasons people's chess levels can go down, right? Concentrating less well, being tired, forgetting openings, getting older, you know, all kinds of reasons. But OTB chess is fun, even if you can't play as well as you used to. So, you know, maybe you can find a weekend tournament where you don't have to concentrate at night. Take some buys for the evening rounds, play the morning rounds, or just go hang out at a chess club and play chess without it being rated and enjoy it anyway, hopefully, even if you can't play your best. Yeah, Goku fan says you could get COVID brain fog. That could be like an issue for somebody playing in a chess tournament or match, for sure. He sure did, Neptunian. Yeah, he played great in the simul's. Exciting stuff, not just sort of like basic moves. All right. So let's keep calculating c5 a little bit. Exactly, Dances with Boars. I'm still learning new things, which is fun. I'm also relearning things I used to know and forgot, and enjoying that all over again, even though it's stuff I already knew. I don't know. Your rating was deemed sort of re-provisional Far Eastern, so they increased something which I think they call like the RD, but basically, yeah, how much your rating varies per game. Can I explain this, Tiger Cubby? Well, basically, this is just we have to calculate. We just have to go takes, and look at all the different versions of takes and see who's better. That's literally all there is to this particular question here. Now, another thing you could do as white is you could trade here first. He's now played c5 after thinking for 10 to 20 minutes. I don't know exactly. It's not showing me right now. I feel like he had about an hour and 27 or hour and 28 before this move. So I think a little less than 20 minutes on that move. And he's played the move he has to. But as far as explaining it, yeah, no, you just have to calculate a bunch of captures and see how they work out. So let's look at this move for a second. Black can capture with the pawn, the bishop, the knight, or could capture one of these pawns. Capturing these pawns looks pretty good. Takes. Bishop here, for example, takes, and boom. Black is up a pawn with a beautiful 3-on-1 queenside majority. Nearly winning, or just winning. A 92-year-old who is still over 1800. Yeah, that's really impressive. Now, Gukesh has spent the last 20 minutes while Ding was thinking, calculating c5 himself. So if he knows what he wants to do, he could try to put some pressure on the clock on Ding with an immediate response. But my guess is that c5 is the correct move, and that there's not like an obvious smashing variation for white. That is quite possibly correct, Lumber. I've seen that moment in quote, etc. c5 had to be done Necratic, no? I mean, it seemed so. All right, so taking on d5 was very unimpressive just now. So we're going to shelve cd5 for the moment and concentrate again on capturings on c5, especially because if white plays a random move, black could take on b4, winning a pawn and tempoing the bishop. So it's very unlikely white's going to allow that. An important question is, can white do this, getting a queenside pawn majority? If white could play b5 and e3, I think they would do it, and it would be an advantage. I'm just trying to have some kind of reference points because I'm a little bit lost here, and you all probably are as well. So if in this position here, Gukesh could trade on c5 with the d pawn, and after bc play e3 and b5, I think he would simply have an advantage. Here's Jesse, who will have more clue than me about this stuff. So let's bring him in. d4 hurts, probably, right? Probably d4 hurts. All right, let me just attend to OBS for 1 second. The webcam, we're going to want to pull in... No, wait. The Zoom, we're going to pull in Jesse's... Might just be a chair, we'll see. I don't hear him yet, so it might be the chair calling me on Zoom. Just a black square. Okay, for now it's a black square. Everyone else is already excited to say hi, Jesse. Gukesh played quite quickly. B takes c5. Oh my goodness. That suggests he might still be in prep. No, he could have just made good use of Ding's 20-minute think himself. That's pretty logical as well. Yeah. But that was played quite fast. Ding recaptures BC5. Of course, he has to. You guys can see below me, above the live position, it shows you what move we're on, right? So it shows you're at move 14 for those of you who want to calculate whether or not Ding's in time trouble or whatever. Okay, so this first idea I had of DC, you can't play E3 as white because black will take this pawn. And you want to play this move, and if you played E3, do you guys understand why I think white might be much better? You get to play A4 and gain some space with this pawn majority on the queen side. If black ever takes on C4, it gives you a nice square for a piece, and the C5 pawn is pretty bad, blocking two of their pieces, and it's an isolated pawn, etc. So the only challenging move would be this, but unfortunately it looks like absolutely crushing because then black also gets E5, and now white can't really stop E4, and white gets kind of squished like a bug in the middle of the board, it looks like. So Gukesh played BC, BC, and now the critical lines are the two captures. It has not bitten him investing ideas because he's very good. You know what? If DC5, he could maybe take with the queen. Then there won't be any tactics on the C file, right? Previously, I'd played moves like this, and then after takes, add some bills to pay on the C file, right? Francois is saying that after B takes C, Ding should have taken some time to think about DC4. I'm sure he did, Francois, but he did before playing C5. When he played C5, he'd figured out what he wanted to do against all these captures. You know, he had his plan and he's following it. For us who are less good at calculating lots of moves and looking ahead, we sometimes have to stop every move and check some variations. But the approach that Ding and to a lesser extent Gukesh are using, well, I think they both do this quite a bit. What they do is, before playing a certain move, they think for a really long time, calculate a bunch of variations, and then once they play, they'll then follow up quickly with their moves. You know, Ding can't think for 20 minutes about C5, and then after you take on C5, spend time double checking different moves. He can't think he can't think deeply and then also think again on every single move. So he clearly thought that B takes C5 was the best move here when he played C5, and he followed that intuition. Okay, so we're here. Let's try this queen c5 move for a second. This looks very close to equalizing for black, this particular variation here, my friends. I mean, you can try to put the rook on c7. I don't know that it's going to be a big deal, though. I think I'm going to go active with the knight now. harass the pawn, the rook. Look at this square. If you go rook c7, yeah, okay, that might bother me a tiny bit, that move. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I may have underestimated the potential for that to be a little bit annoying. If we come here, then maybe try e5 to get this out. Well, maybe still interesting.
How you doing, buddy?
Hey, Jesse.
You sound better, dude. Like your cold's maybe cleared up a little
It
bit.
has not.
Ah.
It has not. No such luck.
So yeah, this is the opening I felt like Ding should be playing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then Bishop C3 move 10. Very strange.
Mm-hmm.
Very strange move. Um, there's a different opening I'm thinking about. Um, I'm having trouble bringing it all together. Yeah, the Bishop B4 check, Queen's Indian.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So there, the bishop would sometimes go to C3.
Yep.
You'd get this setup.
Yeah.
And it was a setup that was really popular in the 80s. And then the computer doesn't like it. And I know this because I remember prepping against some old timers and I was like, they're going to play the bishop C3. And like, sure enough, sure enough, it happened. And we're kind of close to transposing to it even.
Mm-hmm.
But or took us, I think, off of any normal business. That was looks like Gukesh's first thing was B4
Yeah.
and then right C5.
Yeah. And we've said that if Ding didn't play c5, White would have played c5. And probably pretty pleasant for White. So Ding was perhaps slightly forced to play c5 at this point. So
Okay, cool. And your sense of this position, what? White's a touch better?
after Black plays c5,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, White's got like the rook on the c file already, but he's got one move to make something out of this tension, and then these positions can become pretty equal.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So he's got yeah, it's interesting. You could argue that he has two tempi because you could say it's his move and his rook's on
Mm-hmm.
C1.
Yep.
But on the other hand, his bishop on C3 is a real turd. So, you know, also at some point, bishop A3 could be really annoying to the rook on C1.
Okay.
Mhm.
So we haven't calculated c takes d5 very much yet. We have calculated dc a little bit, Jesse. And if Black takes with a piece on c5, White has the idea of trading on f6 and then taking on d5.
Good. And let's go ahead and say DC has got to be our main contender
Yeah, it
because
is so far.
CD knight takes D5 doesn't look like it's anything. Yeah.
Well, cd knight d5, the idea would be then you move the bishop back and the c pawn on c5 is sort of tensed on the c file and can't trade off.
Okay.
And then white's got options to play like e4, d5 next, or something. I don't know. It keeps a little tension. I haven't really looked at it yet.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Mm-hmm.
So, but after dc5, what I came up with for black was queen c5. So that we don't get into any kind of tangle on the c file. And I have not been able to hurt black yet in this line. I tried bishop d4, queen back to c7, cd5, queen c2, rook c2, knight d5, e4, knight b4, rook c7, bishop a6, and then, yeah, I didn't really have an evaluation for what was going on there just yet.
Hey, let me ask you a dumb question. We've been at this days and days. How come you can't put make this board that you're moving around a ChessCom analysis board, and then then you send me the link, and then we both can use it?
I don't know. I just don't really know.
Let's do it, Bausch. It's so easy. It's so easy to do. And then,
Really?
I think this is this way because Kostya doesn't like anybody else to drive when he's doing his show. He's like, excuse me, no, only I can touch the pieces.
I don't know what I don't know how to do it, Baus. But if you want to
You don't know how to
drive,
set up a classroom?
but if you want to drive, you can take the broadcast.
No, but you just go learn classroom, set it up.
I don't know. It's gonna change where all my windows are and
All
everything.
right, Jesus Christ, we can't do it. This is what they do, my friends. So that Jesse can't touch the pieces.
No, Jesse. You can open up your OBS and you can take it, and that'll encourage me to go to bed at some point too, because I'll be able to just slip away.
By the way, today is a little funky for me because at about 7:10, I got to go take the kids to school. Maybe a little later than that, actually. And then I'll be gone it'll take me about, I don't know, 40 minutes.
Okay.
But I'll be back.
Oh, man. Then I might have to stick with the OBS, huh?
Yeah, buddy.
I was thinking maybe today I'd leave you alone to close out the game.
Oh, okay. That might also happen.
Because I was not feeling very, very well. Okay, so this was one idea that we had in chat. I think kind of inspired from Foos.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't really able to evaluate what was going on.
Yeah, good. So we have 2 candidate moves. I don't think there's anything else, right?
Mm-hmm.
Unless there's some bizarre rook b1, which is hard to imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and then bishop d4, queen c7. Another thing that I might like to try for white would be pushing c5. And I have not yet calculated c5, e5, c6. So that's still like virgin territory to explore. Yes, Coffee Acorn. Those are the main moves. Takes c5 and takes d5. Oh, you've calculated this, Asher? You know what happens here? Well, we could give it a run. Here, c6 takes d4, takes b7, takes b7, knight d4, and White doesn't have too much. Black's pretty free. D-pawn's going to be pretty weak with opposite colored bishops. You think White's better positionally here, Asher? Okay, maybe. I mean, I think White's better. I just think maybe by not very much. Has something happened on the live board? Let's have a look. Nope. Queen B2.
Oh, Queen B2. He plays a move I totally didn't think of.
A sneak move.
And why not that move too? Why did we
played
think
a
that?
sneak move. Why not this move? I mean, because of Rook B8, you would think. What are you sneaking around for, Gukesh? Against Rook B8, are you going to A1? Trying to apply some weird long diagonal pressure? That's Retti's dream, right? Queen to Rook 1, as it was written back then.
Yeah, okay, this is kind of interesting. So the claim is that when I get my queen to A1, my queen will be comfortable and yours won't.
So Black's queen will always be, unfortunately, under the gaze of one of these rooks. And the main option for White to have an advantage, folks, if Ding had messed up the timing of C5, the main variation would have been some kind of takes on C5 or D5. But apparently Ding's done everything correctly, Jesse. And so none of these captures were really threatening. So in these cases, White can always keep playing, even when Black has achieved pseudo-equality, right? And even if Black takes on C4 and D4, White's going to move the knights to D4 and C4 and, try and pressure Black in a symmetrical pawn structure. That exists. It happens.
Yeah. Okay, David, let's ask the obvious question. Let's play Rook B8.
Yeah. Okay. I'm assuming Queen A1. Otherwise, I'm pretty confused.
All right, so we'll go Queen A1. And now
the F2 square looks juicy for Black. I want to sack. I want to sack there while White's queen is so far away.
By the way, before David starts sacking things, I want to just point out one clever tactic is CD4 and, well, CD4 is a big question, but CD4 and then if knight D4, which I think is the right move, bishop A3, I have knight B5. Because if bishop A3 came, it would really disturb my coconuts.
Yeah.
So I think that's a key thing that I prevent that.
Yeah, we don't really want any other square but C1 for this rook.
So when you play Queen B2, you're going to calculate Rook A B8, I assume Queen A1, and then you really have to say to yourself, Black can't do anything to me here. And he's got a lot of choices, like
knight E4 and knight G4, gunning for F2.
Oh my God, take it easy. Take it easy with F2, buddy.
When this stuff doesn't work out for White, it's because Black reacts harshly. I think if Black just takes on C4 and then takes on D4.
Okay, here's the weird thing.
White might have a little tickle, no?
So if we imagine CD4, let's imagine CD4. So Queen A1, CD4.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I play Bishop D4, then I'm concerned with Bishop A3. Maybe I shouldn't be, but that would be a little concern because it would really knock my rook around.
Mm-hmm.
And if I play Knight D4, the question is pretty simple, and that is why doesn't DC just fully solve all my problems?
Yeah. Hear ye. It's a good question.
So yeah, let's look at this position maybe and just try to imagine what Gukesh is thinking.
Also the C pawn. I mean, I can't even recapture it right now. What's happening to me? White seems to have absolutely nothing here, Jesse. Nothing to the nothing's power. Zipperino.
So let me try bishop d4 on move 17, just to see if I can make that work.
Mm-hmm.
That's more natural.
We only got one or two moves, so.
Bishop a3 was my concern.
Right.
Now I just want to see if I have anything creative here.
Black doesn't have a ton of moves other than bishop a3, right? Because white's threatening cd5, and maybe bishop a7, and maybe even c5 in some cases. So pretty much bishop a3 is the move here.
Maybe I could claim I got a little bit with rook c3. Oh, I don't know about this actually. Bishop b4. And then I was thinking rook b3, but I think he just takes on d2 and then takes on c4, and then I'm left wondering why I'm here.
The eternal question. I guess you would take on a7 and say you've got the bishop pair, right? You could also take with your knight if you're really scared about your c-pawn, but we need to defend the rook. So we're going to give this, give that, grab it.
Oh, I'm sorry, David. I'm sorry. I was saying rook b3.
You went to b3.
This is why having a common board would be good, because I have
to. You're right. It would be good. I just
it's not that hard.
Can't figure out how to arrange it. I apologize.
So bishop b4, maybe rook c2, but let's just say the reason I want to look at rook b3, which I can't make work, by the way, but is that on rook c2, now my c-pawn is pinned, and black has a free move to do whatever they want.
Right. Okay, so we'll take with the knight here. Take on c4. Trade. Oh, this is feeling not good.
No, I don't got it. I don't got anything, right?
Feeling not good. We've got like a bishop versus a knight. But I would say it's equal. More or less.
Oh, I got to get our famous donk up here.
Yeah.
Doc spreadsheets. David's got 0.1. I still feel this is in the range. I don't know what's going on, but it's in the range of a normal opening advantage. I don't know how yet, but I'm going to just put it at 0.3 for a second.
Oh, okay. That's pretty good.
No, you know. Some engines, when you turn on the computer, it says 0.3 to begin, others say 0.2. And you're like, I don't know which one it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Back in the day, I feel like people thought it was like, they didn't have the points and everything, but if they could have had points, they probably would have said, oh, it's about 0.8 or something.
On move 1 for white?
Back in the day, the advantage of white was thought to be higher than it is now.
I agree, but I think it's gone from like 0.3 to 0.1 or 0.15. I don't think it was ever 0.8. That'd be like you're almost winning a pawn by force
There were people who thought that white could be winning by force. It was a legitimate question.
Okay.
Yeah, back in the day, man.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do this again. Queen b2, rook b8. And we, let's say the obvious too. The pattern we have seen in almost every game is Ding will tank and maybe play a couple dubious moves while he's tanking, and then play really well once he's in time pressure.
Jesse, I just noticed a little detail.
Okay.
That could mix things up a little bit. Bishop takes a7 here.
Mixing it up there, buddy.
I think you got to play rook a8, right?
bishop a3, and then you want bishop a7. Okay, rook a8. What's your idea?
Okay, c takes d5.
Oh, you're getting very spicy. Okay, bishop takes rook.
Recapture.
Actually, I did briefly consider this. I didn't understand. So queen, let me just put on d6 first. I didn't understand what white was going to do here.
Yeah.
I looked at the similar position without taking on a7.
Right. This is not very good.
Right?
Yeah. Not very good.
The cd4, rook b8, cd4, knight d4, we have this dc4 thing.
Only so many choices.
Oh, I might have a crazy idea, David.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't think. Maybe I do. Okay, just let's humor me for a second. So knight d4,
Yeah.
dc4, bishop b7, rook b7.
Yeah. Could also be queen b7.
Well, queen b7, I think is we could claim that maybe I got something with knight c4. Right?
Maybe.
And again, with this one, I'm not sure I have anything either. In fact, I'm pretty unsure. I'm pretty much completely unsure, but let me just check. So rook b7, knight c4, queen c4, bishop a5. Okay, we got to check. Got to check bishop a5. Now the queen has three squares, d5, a6, a4. Let's put it on a6 first. We could change our mind in a second.
Mm-hmm.
So bishop d8.
Well, now there's also knight c6, maybe. Okay, go to d8. Takes.
Knight c6, I don't understand rook e8, but maybe there's some way to make that work, right?
Yeah.
So snip, stop, and then the bummer for me is on rook c8, you do have rook b8.
Mm-hmm. And then you take, and play knight e6.
Yeah, something like that.
Bishop e7, though.
Probably, or b6.
Mm-hmm.
But in either one of these positions, it's not over.
Yeah.
The rook is strong, we got the pawn.
Yeah, we don't look better either, right?
I think it depends who you talk to. A lot of people really enjoy the rook in a position like this. Okay, that's just an idea, dude.
Yeah, no, that's an idea.
That is an idea. And that's obviously pretty hardcore.
Yeah.
You know. I don't know. I'm just trying to make it. I'm trying to make it work.
You could,
because white, you know, I've been we've all been in a lot of positions like this where you just maybe you have a tiny bit of something and you have to be creative to get the tiniest little scratch.
yeah.
Certainly, I would like to play CD4, knight d4. That's what I would like to do.
Yeah. I mean, you also have rook c6 and knight c6 in this position instead of rook c8, and those are also interesting.
Well, right, and we have to say white had black also had queen a4 instead of queen a6.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in fact, rook c6. Well, rook c6, the guy could play rook b6, so that wouldn't be any good. But I do think I want rook c8 to happen.
Yeah. Um, and how about knight c6?
I didn't understand. What was it? Right, if I just move the bishop somewhere, what you're gonna do?
Either knight e7 or knight e5 or knight b4, depending where you go.
That's a lot of defending.
Sorry, I mean my point is there's some hops.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah, I
trying to
don't
do
get it.
something with the two files I got.
Yeah, I don't get it on any of those because he's got C. I don't know, say C7.
Bishop c7. Okay, okay. Now where's the magic? Where's the magic?
Now Ding is going down in time again.
We'll go knight e5.
Boss, I'm just playing bishop takes E5.
Okay. Queen
Or
e5.
Yeah. Okay, I'm obviously going to play something. I don't know. H6 or something.
H6.
Something, you know. I like the other one better than this, but yeah, there's all kinds of ways that maybe we could get a position like this.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know.
Another thing, David, that we could do on CD4, knight D4, BC4 is claim that I don't know about my claims here. That there's some other way to get the pawn back. It's not quite so violent. But also what you said, David, about bishop b7, queen b7, even there too. I'm not convinced we have anything special.
Right. I mean, we can recapture the pawn, but who says we have anything good? Black's got knight d5, knight c5, rooks. I mean, everything looks fine in Black's position. It looks basically equal after queen b7, knight c4.
And let's just say the obvious thing, this queen b2, which didn't even cross our minds.
Yeah.
The intention is to say that the black queen is uncomfortable.
Right.
But we have yet to find a variation where she is uncomfortable.
All it takes is a single bishop trade, and she's fine.
Okay, so Ding believed. Ding believed and played knight b6.
Leaving the tension.
Now, knight b6 isn't dumb either because knight a4 is a thing.
Yeah, but he'd better be ready for bishop a5 as well. I mean, there's a lot of stuff still going on here now.
No, I thought rook b8 was the natural move.
Yeah.
And right, bishop a5 looks very plausible. And by the way, the whole problem in all these variations that we've been looking at has been our bishop. And it's like, Baus, well, what are you doing?
That is Ding's third 18-minute think of the game, Jesse.
I think his intention on bishop a5, okay, is DC.
Okay.
So that if knight c4, we'll play knight c4.
Yeah.
I would want to think long and hard if I was going to play that kind of chess too.
Yeah. Yeah, that looks pretty sound.
Okay, so maybe a good move. Now, let me just say some things that make me suspicious about knight b6. The queen is still now funky on c7.
Yeah.
Okay, move played almost instantly. Bishop a.
Very fast.
Now, to a certain extent, like you think about it, it's like, well, if I'm going to have anything, that's the move. Because My bishop, what I was about to say was the piece that doesn't make sense in white's position is the bishop.
Yeah.
So yes, there's going to be some stuff to calculate, but on the other hand, like, oh yeah, the bishop needs to go. One cool idea for us that I just realized is we don't need to fear DC too much because then we could just play rook takes, David. Rook takes C4.
Oh, that's the move, Jesse.
Um,
I was just checking their faces for a bit there, but yeah, that makes sense. DC4, Rook C4 with quite a bit of tension still on the board. Pretty spicy. Now, what if black just checks on what you're doing, plays knight C4, and you go knight C4? And I don't know, they put the queen on C6.
mm-hmm.
Knight H4?
Well, how about I take on a D8?
Take on D8 first?
Because now you have to play bishop D8, like a sadster, and then I go knight E1, and then you're in
So
big
normally I
trouble.
would take with my rook, and you're saying I'm just busted to knight A5?
Right.
That's a problem.
Now you didn't have to put your queen on C6. You could have gone somewhere else too.
Yeah, but I didn't have many squares. They're mostly pretty sad, right? I mean, if I go back to C8 or B8 or something, you can take on D8. My queen's defending the bishop, so I have to take here, and then knight D6 wins. Ugh. If I put my queen on B8 instead of C8, then it's bishop D8, and white just takes the pawn, I imagine, on C5. And I'm a little bottled up there, too.
I think, okay, now I'm starting to feel like maybe they missed this. And to me, in my simplistic little mind,
Mm-hmm.
if white can put the bishop on A5 without any repercussions, then white is better because our queen is well placed. Our bishop that was poor is now
Mm-hmm.
fixed.
Yeah. Bishop A5. I don't see why he didn't just trade in the center. We definitely did not find the reason for him to play a move other than the basic moves, right? Knight B6 is not the basic move, not the first move he went for.
Well, right. So the basic move was queen B2, rook B8, and we did
Yeah.
not find a way to deal with that.
Yeah. Nothing. Maybe the queen wasn't going to A1, Jesse. Sorry to
That's fine.
backtrack. Maybe queen A3.
Oh, oh, that's on. But then we just play CD.
Okay.
Queen takes E7,
I guess I
DC.
gotta take C7. I guess I gotta take with the rook.
But I hear I'm doing fine, I think.
Yeah. No, here you're getting tickled.
Okay, so the question is, am I getting tickled? Because, wow, okay, this is actually really interesting, David. I'm glad you brought this up.
Yeah.
So,
Sorry it took me forever to think of a move.
but am I really getting tickled? Because the only real threat you have is maybe knight G5, right?
I'm not necessarily even threatening anything. I'm just saying I kept the game going and the dark squares are a little weak.
How about I play rook BC8 there, just as an example. And next move, I'm kind of sort of saying I'm just going to move my knight.
Mm-hmm.
And on knight G5, I'll move my knight. Maybe rook DC1? I don't know.
I'm working on it. Rook DC1 was my first instinct.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I looked for a second at CD5, Queen C3, DE6. Like a madman. It did not work.
hard to believe, right?
All right. I'm going to...
First of all, David, props to you for finding Queen A3. That was not even on my radar.
Yeah.
It's definitely an interesting move.
And by the way, Clarky, when Jesse said that maybe Ding missed something, it would not be bishop a5. You're correct. It would be rook takes c4. So bishop a5, dc4, rook c4. Jesse's saying, okay, it's not the highest chance that Ding missed it, but Jesse's thinking that's the kind of thing that's possible to miss.
Well, also, and let's just say, imagine you're in the spot and your opponent surprises you and plays this queen b2,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then you go down a rabbit hole with rook a b8, and after this queen a3 thing, you're like, ooh, I feel uncomfortable. And then your mind comes to around a weird move like knight b6, and and then that's how you can miss a rook c4, because you've already like kind of in your mind you decided you're unhappy.
Right, like he probably spent 80-90% of his time on rook b8 and versions of cd4 and dc4. There's a good chance that he only thought about knight b6 for the last 1 or 2 minutes of his 18 minutes. Now, the other thing to say about that, Clarky, is when you spend 18 minutes and you play knight b6 and your opponent plays bishop a5, you would normally play your next move within 1 minute.
Mm-hmm. Very true, yeah.
So Ding has now stopped and thought for at least 4 or 5 minutes after bishop a5. Bishop a5 being, if you didn't miss it, certainly the most obvious move for white to play. We didn't expect Ding to play knight b6, right? Like when he played it, we had not considered it for a single second. How long did it take for Jesse and I to suggest bishop a5? Less than 5 seconds, right? So it's absolutely top of mind to any player. So if Gukesh plays like the obvious number one move that Ding would have been thinking about with knight b6, and Ding doesn't respond immediately, it tells us a very small amount of Ding's time was spent on knight b6. He was thinking about other things. He came to knight b6 and finally decided to play it, maybe without having fully figured it out, but partly from time pressure. Plays knight b6, bishop a5 comes in, and immediately whatever he'd started planning with knight b6, bishop a5 is still under question for him.
Yeah, and also what I would say is, so the old timers, and I follow their advice on this, I think it's very correct, would say that his first two things in particular, bishop b7 and c5, way too long, and you're not actually thinking too much about variations. You're going back and forth, you're hemming and hawing. It's got to be done faster because those are intuitive decisions.
You weren't there, but we said that for you.
Okay, good.
You would say that.
Yeah. And then knight b6 is an example, I think, of long think, wrong think, because the dude basically found a way to talk himself out of rook a b8. And then this looks pretty nasty. All right, I'm going to go.
So basically, your instinct tells you like all these moves in 5 seconds, right? Like I should play c5. I should play rook b8. I should play cd4, right? And then you calculate for 20 minutes and you find some ghosts and then you do something weird. Right.
So I raised it. I don't think it's winning or anything, but I definitely think white's better, I put it at 0.5 for a second.
Okay. Jesse, I still have on our analysis board this queen e7 position and then rook dc1 just to kind of see like was there any real danger here. So I'm imagining you would still play knight b6 after I double rooks. Would be option A for black here. I don't think you can let me take on d5 and then take the 2 rooks, because then I take on e6 or d8 or something, right? So
okay, I'll play knight b6. I think I could have other moves too.
You could have other moves, but I think that's like option 1.
Okay, sure.
So knight b6. Now my queen's attacked. And now my options are queen a3 or trading queens, right? queen a3, you do have the move d4. It doesn't feel good to me. So I'll trade.
You sure I have queen d4? You just take it.
After knight b6, if I go queen a3, you can play d4 because the rook's defending d4.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Oh, no. I played rook dc8. See, this is why we have to have a common board, my friend.
I'm so sorry.
But by the way, your move, rook cd8, cb, excuse me, rook bc8
is also a candidate, right? Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Very plausible.
Something necessarily wrong with it.
Right. Okay, so you went this way.
Just with the intuition that my rook on b8 might be useful.
Yeah, right. No, I understand. Okay, and so then I was still maybe doubling my rooks, and you're still probably playing knight b6, and then I could go queen a3 though now, Jesse. Yeah, because now you don't have d4.
I just want to stress, I don't fear this.
You just don't fear it. Yeah, I understand. I'm not crushing anybody here.
Knight c4 is a good simple move. That's nothing.
Yeah, doesn't feel like much. I don't know. It was better than our queen a1 line though, slightly.
It was interesting, yeah. Well, let's try it again. cd4, queen e7, dc3. Let's just pause for a second. Let's say I play knight g5 right there.
Hoo la la. Okay, I don't think black can take the knight because you got queen f7, knight e6. That looks
well. Oh, you're faster on it than I am, but let's believe that for a second.
I mean, there's a mate in one threat here, so we can't even take the rook yet.
Yeah, okay, so let's believe that. So knight g5, and then that means rook f8 is kind of our main dude. And then we play rook takes c3. And then maybe we just say...
Oh, by the way, Jesse, another move, with or without knight g5, is c takes d5 instead of rook c3. But that's really sketchy. There's like knight d5. Yeah, okay. Doesn't make any sense, but it's there. Okay, we'll play rook c3.
But now on rook c3, if I go h6, and you go knight f3...
No, we're not going back.
Well, I'm just saying, if you have to go back, then white obviously is just the same kind of very similar to before.
Right. No, white's probably playing knight takes e6.
Though it's hard to imagine why
hard
this
to imagine.
Is anything.
Yeah. Really hard to believe. I don't see anything here. I don't have any juice. I don't think it's any of this.
Now, another idea, David. I don't know if I believe this either. I don't know if I do. No, I don't think I was thinking instead of queen e7, you could consider queen a5, but I just think it's absolutely nothing. So queen e7, dc3.
Yeah, Dink's clock looks a bit low, but I really suggest that we keep our eyes on the board versus the clock, folks. If he gets a good position, the time won't matter. We've seen he can play, 10 complicated moves in 5 minutes if the position, or they don't have to be that complicated. It's not that complicated to him, right? As long as his position's okay, he just knows how to play instinctively.
Let's just say he's gotten away with it so far. No one's superhuman. No one's superhuman, Bob. Okay. It's going to catch up with you.
Maybe, but it's more important is whether or not he's in a bad position. If he's in a bad position, it's going to be much more of a thing.
I think, too, that the last 2 games that really went the distance have definitely had to warn on dude. He's had to defend bad positions twice.
Yeah. It's
And
three.
it's tiring, dude. It's tiring. Okay.
This is the third
DC4
game
was
of a
played.
three-game stretch. Tomorrow he gets a rest day. So today is really a day for Gukesh to strike. We get DC4. Knight takes C4, Jesse. What? You said he
Yeah.
couldn't play that.
Well, here I'm all the way wrong. So let's get into it. Knight takes C4,
What the
bishop
goodness?
C7.
Okay.
I just assumed this landed in a trade out, but
Yeah.
maybe it's not like that.
Okay,
So
let's go
bishop
bishop
D8.
D8. Now black could recapture on D8. Then they would be down in... Then they'd have two pieces against a rook? What's going on? Ding has played bishop F3 instantaneously. None of this is happening.
Okay, wait. We gotta understand this though. Okay, so knight C4.
Okay,
You
knight
gotta
D1 would
play.
be a mistake after bishop E7. So let's play rook D8. What is white doing? Rook D2, I guess. Knight A4. I can't understand yet. What? I mean, knight C4. You definitely don't have any fancy queen move, right? Because A5's attacked a bunch of times. Maybe rook C4, Jesse? Hang on. Rook C4. Queen A5. Queen B7. Hitting the bishop on E7. There's no rook D7 because of the A8 rook. So, like bishop F8. You have knight E5. Oh! Ouch. Jesse, I think I found it. He was just going to recapture on C4 with the rook and leave the bishop hanging.
I still got a lot of questions. Like, first of all, on that position with queen B7, I can throw in queen A2 to be annoying.
You can play what? Queen A2 here?
Queen A2, yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And I'm thinking knight E5 then. Ooh! Hot. Hot! That's a hot potato, Jesse. That's a hot potato. Black is in some real danger there.
Hey, maybe. Okay, so oh my gosh. This is actually an example where we got things totally wrong. I still like my rook C4 move, by the way.
Yeah, it looked
I
like
still like my rook C4
it
move.
looked
So
like a
knight
move.
C4. He goes bishop
He goes
F3.
bishop F3. And the point
Okay,
is
so right.
that Gukesh can't
Yeah.
recapture because of knight C4. As you've seen, he didn't recapture. Instead, he threw in bishop takes B6, giving up the proud bishop, and then bishop F3. So he's trying to... I don't know what. He's got opposite-colored bishops. He's attacking the B6 pawn. Seems like Ding might be okay here, but before we get that, I just wanted to show folks bishop F3, knight C4. That's why Ding gave up the bishop. Then there's no rook. Then there's no piece hanging on B7, so rook C4, queen A5. Doesn't work anymore. I suppose. I mean, like bishop takes, rook takes, queen B7, rook E8. Or queen D8. Queen D8. Sure. Ha! Look at that. Stopping the passed C pawn as well. Because one of the big intentions for white in this whole queen b7 stuff is to play dc5 and, have a problematic pass pawn. Bishop f3, Gabriel's pure takes, just calculating every move that you have to make and that you can make. So this forces Gukesh to give up his dark squared bishop, right? That looked forced. Takes. Now we're in this live position, and Ding is thinking again versus banging out, rook b8 or something obvious. He definitely seems to be playing a bit slowly. What's your intuition on the advantage here, Jesse, without any calculation?
Well, I think maybe white's got a little something, and black has a little interesting choice here because the rook. Okay, let's just say it's a big choice actually here for black because we have knight d5, we have rook a6, and we have rook b8.
Mm-hmm. By the way, I've only nudged up my evaluation from point 1 to point 2. I think your evaluation's very high when Ding has a fundamentally sound position, no long-term disadvantage, no major weakness. He's just like a tiny bit of an initiative from white. So I'm not feeling what Ding's hesitating about throughout this game, Jesse. I'm not feeling like what the pressure is that's causing Ding to tank so much. You see what I mean? Like he's only thinking so much because he's seeing some unpleasant positions.
But David, this is potentially a very unpleasant, and
Okay.
it depends a lot on where you go.
Yeah.
So, for example, I think knight d5 is no bueno because I can take it and then play queen takes b6.
Knight d5, bishop takes. Yeah, I didn't suggest knight d5. Pawn
Okay,
takes.
so we're just ruling it out. So no knight d5, and so therefore it looks like rook b8, which is let's call that the passive option, and rook a6, which is the ambitious option because you're claiming things about the a file.
Right.
But your other rook really can't come help you on that a file.
Right. So rook a6, you'd have to have a plan for queen b5 going after that rook.
And also a plan for knight e5, which also could be annoying.
So knight e5 is what I thought of against rook a b8, right? Is that maybe knight e5 is what's got him hesitating?
David, he's not out of the woods yet. This is very hot here.
I agree that it's not like out of the woods, but I also think he looks fundamentally sound. And against knight e5, the defense I had in mind was knight d5, and I had not yet.
Okay, so the ambitious move was played, rook a6. And so when we talk about the advantage here, it's important to say that if white has anything, he has to play this very accurately to create grief.
Mm-hmm.
So we have two, I was about to say we have two. We have, because last time I was wrong. Last time I was wrong about the options. But we have the moves. Knight e5. I don't really believe in queen b5, but queen b5 is actually also a thought. Mm-hmm. So queen b5 is something to contend with.
Right.
Why don't we show queen e5 first? Because that's the most forcing.
Yeah. Only thing I see is queen a7.
Well, okay. So the first, just show rook a2.
Okay.
Knight b6. And then that looks like probably an advantage to white because your c pawn is going to fall.
Yeah. Very good chance.
And there you can see the power of the bishop on f3. I do want to say just positionally too, we're going to get into a lot of variations here, but the bishop on f3 is really well placed. Taking away the knight invasion stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought this looked a little bit worrisome for black, this position here. So I was anticipating queen a7.
But then
knight e5, huh?
Or knight e5 or DC. Yeah, both of those.
What does DC do here? Oh, what DC does is it plays on his back rank.
Yeah.
Because he's a little bit off to the side here, folks. So the bishop can't take on c5 because of the back rank. So you probably take with the b pawn. And then we get rook d8, bishop d8.
And then, David, I just want to stress that even if you don't find anything special there, you have to agree that a move like a3, I'm better. Because I got the blockading knight and I got all that stuff.
I will agree that black's bishop is less good than white's. You got the blockading knight. It's a little unclear how you're going to win the position when playing a3. I would be inclined to still look for an aggressive move here for white. I mean,
okay,
maybe G4. Maybe G4, Jesse.
Well, I'll try to find something better if you think that's black's best. But I just wanted to point out right away that that's definitely a nice position for white.
Yeah, fair enough.
Because, when you're analyzing, if you find a good position, you'll be like, okay, that's good for this. I'll just
Yeah.
I can have this as my default, and then later I can see if I can come up with something better.
Right. To be frank, Jesse, I mean, I say it almost as a joke, but G4 might be pretty strong. And maybe even I throw in Rook D1 first, where
Mm.
black has to go Bishop E7, right? And then G4. So I'm looking at trying to land the Rook on D7 or the Queen on E8. And of course, black plays H6 and I play H4, and it's hot.
David, also the other thing I want to add on your Queen A7 is knight E5 might just end the game. I don't know.
Right. So Queen A7, Knight E5. That spot is hard to guard now.
Well, I own the light squares and I'm coming in,
Right.
baby.
You've got this move Rook A5 backing me up, but then let's say I play Queen B1. Now there's just even more pieces to worry about Knight
Yeah,
C6, right?
even more, dude. That's the full
It's
family
like,
fork right there.
congrats on the tempo with Rook A5. That was like an anti-tempo. Knight E5. I don't really trust Rook D4 here. Let's just try it though. Takes. Check Galeno. Bishop F8. Queen to B4. Just slide back like you're playing the Catalan.
Okay, David,
Slide.
you were saying, Cry, why are you going so high? Now I'm going higher. I'm going to 0.7. This is a little bit unpleasant for a peasant.
Queen B5 looks like it does do a little bit of a number. I don't know exactly what black does there. I would agree with the assessment that Gukesh's team seems to be getting the better preparation so far. Yes, I think Ding has been uncomfortable and surprised in the opening more often than Gukesh.
Oh yeah. In fact, I was thinking about it this morning. Like when you think of Battle of the Openings, it was just the one game where Ding had the nice London that was he won the Battle of Prep,
Mm-hmm.
and there he didn't even want to play after he got his nice position.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And also, let's just say it's amazing though, where Ding actually you could also call it winning the Battle of Prep, is that Gukesh has abandoned E4.
Mm-hmm.
It's very stunning to me. I was convinced we are going to see French after that first game.
But didn't you also believe that Gukesh would sort of mix things up?
Yes, but we're
Rematch?
here in round nine, dude, and he's only played against the French twice, and the second time was an exchange French.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My Gukesh said the exchange is a reasonable line.
So just to recap, my friends, Queen B5 looks very tempting, but Knight E5 might also be a hell of a draw.
Yeah.
So
By the way, asking about game one is III or LLL. In game one, Gukesh won the Battle of Prep. He then just played like a 2400 instead of a 2800. So
true.
he played terribly in the middle game, but
Mhm.
he predicted the opening. He had a surprise. Ding spent an extra hour on the clock, and Gukesh had what he had prepared. So preparation wise, his team won that one. He just wasn't like chess wise prepared to play the position. Do I think this position plays to Gukesh's strength? I don't know. It's a fine position. I'd be reasonably happy to play white. Now that I'm seeing Queen B5 and thinking about it more, I'm going to raise my evaluation a tiny bit. I'm not going to get too excited though yet. 0.37. Got a little initiativo, but nothing concrete yet.
What do you mean nothing concrete, David? After Queen Ace, what move do you want to play? It's very concrete all of a sudden.
Okay, I'm gonna defend Rook A2.
Okay, good question. Knight B6.
Knight B6. Good. Queen d6.
Also, something I want to admit in this position is whatever we decide about Queen d6, it is true that I'm actually not threatening anything here.
Right. Like I also have h6 as my other candidate move, but I'm just playing like a more forcing move first.
Okay.
To get my baron.
This was a blunder on our parts to miss this at first. So
what? I didn't miss this.
Well, before we stopped at knight b6 because it looked unpleasant.
Yeah, we stopped, but I'd seen that we weren't threatening to take on c5. I just thought, there was some pressure.
Okay, first of all, Queen d6 isn't it because of rook takes c5.
I was going to play Queen c5.
And then King g2.
Yeah. And then I got to get behind that passed pawn. Got to monitor it.
Maybe you can, like rook c1.
Mm-hmm. You probably push ahead. And I'll, I don't know, give you the business on the king side. Whoa, not there, David. Queen takes g5. Okay, hang on. Slow it down.
You play rook c2 like a normal person.
But... yeah, I kind of played like Gukesh there for a second. Okay. I'll double them up. Like a normal person. I'm going to do my impression of a normal person.
Like knight d7.
What's that?
Okay, I'm going to admit this is not as fancy as I wanted it to be, and also I don't think Queen d6 is necessary because you have h6 or some other move. Mm-hmm. So let me go back and think about this. Okay, so Queen b5, we're saying rook a2, knight b6, and then maybe he's going to live through that situation.
It's a question. It's a question.
Okay, just because we should also ask other questions. What happens on knight e5 instead of queen b5?
Instead of this?
Instead of queen b5.
Oh, well, hang on. You're giving up already here? Like
no, I just want to look at knight e5 too because knight e5 is the other big question.
I think I may have just refuted queen d6, by the way.
But I can believe that.
Queen
but
b3.
I also just want to
reinforcing d1.
We'll go back, but I just want to see on knight e5 what it is black is actually going to do. Because if I sink the knight, I feel like I'm doing pretty good.
Option 1 would be knight d5. Covering.
I think it's option only. It's option only.
It may be only. It's the first and only move I've looked at so far.
Okay, so let's say that on knight e5, we're at least believing that knight d5 is a thing. One reason I'm checking all this, David, is I have been surprised already a couple times this game by like moves I hadn't even thought about.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 6. Okay, so let's do go back to queen b5. Queen b5, rook a2, knight b6, and let's just say on this knight b6 position, black has several.
Oh, you're going back to the other thing? You're bouncing around a lot, Jesse. Let's play one of these lines out a little bit further. So knight d5.
But I didn't see anything after knight d5. That's why I went back.
Okay, I'll take on c5.
Okay. I don't know. Let's take with the pawn.
Mm-hmm. That's what I expected. e4.
I think bishop takes seems fine too. I don't understand why not.
Okay.
All right, I don't know. Let's play knight e4.
Knight b4?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I was going to play queen b4 there.
Knight hang knight e5.
Yeah. Okay, maybe you go rook d1 first, right? Bishop d1. Then queen e5. Queen b7.
It ain't much, but
yeah, I don't really have anything here. Shoot. I'd really been counting on queen b4. Can I play knight f7 here? Oh, something's
Queen
happened in the
B5
game.
played.
Queen b5, yeah.
Queen B5 played. Yeah, I have a feeling Queen B5 is the only move really makes sense. So Rook A2, but it's not as easy as at first I thought. So
Mm-hmm.
okay, Rook A2, we're expecting.
I'm just gonna watch him play it. He played it like it was a slightly juicy move. He's normally like so impassive, but there was just
Yeah.
a little verve in his wrist there. Like, I'm coming in. I'm almost in. I'm looking at the door.
So you guys, the issue is with this knight B6 position is that we're not actually threatening anything yet.
Right.
And it's a major
But there's
bummer.
maybe like a quasi threat, Jesse, of Queen B3.
But then when we play Queen B3, then we're not holding on to the C5
Right.
position.
So basically, okay, let's play H6 for black.
Okay, yeah, let's try H6.
And then let's play Queen B3. So let's slide the rook back to A6. Take on C5 by pawn. Rook D1, Queen D1. And now if bishop C5, knight A4. And
then I have Rook A4, Queen A4, Bishop F2.
yeah. You also have bishop F2, King F2, Queen A7.
Fair enough.
Oh no, then there's knight C5. Okay, so there's only one order there. Okay. But anyway, this is like, kind of like tactical sequence number 1 that I was thinking about. And if the pawn weren't on H6, white might have some extra juice here. Like if black had back rank issues, maybe knight A8 would be good. I don't know. But it looks like this doesn't do anything here. There's been a move. He's played Rook A2, Knight B6. Okay, they've each played a move pretty quickly.
One idea, David, is let's say you play a move like H6 or G6. Positionally, G6 would be the move. I don't know if it really is going to make a difference, but just to put it in the opposite color of your bishop.
Mm-hmm.
Then maybe we could play D5. Emphasis on maybe.
You're definitely trying to do something. I mean, you really have to fear Rook B8 anytime you give up the DC move.
Yeah, no, I'm very fearful.
Gotta be very careful, but maybe there's Queen C4, right? Like Rook B8.
Let me just stress, I'm very fearful. I don't believe it. So I don't believe in D5.
Okay. I mean, what am I doing after Rook B8? Yeah, Rook B8. I go Queen C4, you go Rook A7.
Almost Rook anywhere, and then this taking on F7 stuff really doesn't do anything.
No, I can't go take twice and give the knight. I've got nothing. And my knight's got sort of nowhere to go.
Okay, so let's just brass tacks here. Knight B6, we are unfortunately not threatening DC because of Rook D1.
Queen A7 played relatively quickly. See, everybody who thought Ding was in time trouble, I mean, he was really hesitating there and worrying and stuff, but he's still got plenty of time.
Queen A7 looks like a clever pants move because it looks like he's saying DC, Rook takes D1, Rook takes D1, Rook A5 is the idea. And he's saying there's all of these knight C8 things don't scare me. They scare me a little bit.
Yeah, knight C8 looks pretty scary. Let's check it. It'd be Rook B5 probably. Knight A7, Rook C5. Knight C6, Bishop F8. Draw. Yeah, Hayden, against that pawn takes line that you had, black's going to play like King F8 or King G7 and just leave the pawn on F7. I wanted to do the same thing as you, of course. Of course. Okay, what if I go Queen B4 here? So bishop c5 loses to rook d8. And I was hoping that rook c5 would lose to knight c8, but it covers knight c8. Covers it real good.
Queen a7 looks like a nice move.
Huh.
Okay, I'm taking my human eval bar down. I got a little excited there.
Yeah. You got all worked up, Kraai.
I'm still at 0.3, but it's all just a real question of can he squeeze something small at us, which it feels like he should, but it's like really it might just all fall apart.
Yeah. Wow, queen a7. It does. Even if you moved white's d pawn back to d3, you'd think that black was suffering positionally. But now, with the pawns threatening each other, Gukesh is committed, right? He's like, there's the tension is on. The knight on b6 is awkward. He's got to do something pretty direct here. Okay, how about your d5 move here? Is that a small edge now?
It's just so hard to believe it.
Yeah. Okay.
One cheapo merchant move I came up with was queen c4, cd4, knight c8. And there is a variation I at least win. But there's you don't have to take on d4, boss.
No, but that's a move that at least maybe does something. The thing is, it takes the retreat square for the knight away, right?
I mean, positionally, it's a perfect cheapo merchant example because I'm not really doing it.
Right. So my first thought is rook a5. Right. Just
sure.
Getting out of range, and where is your Springer trying to go? It's wishing it were on e5, right, Jesse? Wishing he had gone to e5 instead of b6. Okay. Let's try something else. Let's try d5. I mean, I don't think this looks like much. Let me try and punish it really badly with rook b8. I had this clever thought
And
there.
even if we could just take it on d5 too, well, I mean.
Right. I had this clever thought of d6 here. But black can actually just go bishop d8, right? Congrats.
Yeah, I don't think you can do it.
Congrats on being clever. Now we're dead.
Okay, so at the moment, all I'm seeing is the massive trade out that leads to a draw. But here's the problem: Gukesh can't do it. He can't bring himself to just get that equal position to get a draw.
Yeah, I'm seeing nothing. I'm temporarily dropping my eval to the floor until I find something. But right now the tension seems to be draining all the tension out of the position.
The tension seems to be draining the tension?
Yeah, the fact that there is this pawn tension and knight tension on b6 is kind of like forcing variations, right?
Okay, David, I got a terrible idea. It's just an idea. Queen b1 is the similar ideas to my cheapo merchant line.
Okay, so you still have knight c6 if I take.
Knight c8, yeah.
Oh, sorry, knight c8. God, I want the knight on e5 and c6, don't I? Okay. Rook a6, I will try.
There. Okay, so I'm going to hope
dc5.
DC does something.
Yeah. Rook d1, bishop c5, rook d8.
Now here, by the way, like if you're white and you find this variation of bishop c5 and you get to play rook d8, well, at least you get a flutter of joy that you got to check on d8.
What do you mean? It's over. You just back rank mate them.
Yeah, so why'd you let me do that?
I don't know. I was just playing out a variation, you know.
There was at least one variation with a flutter of joy.
JD, when we ranked recent World Championship matches below the historical ones, it doesn't mean we rank the World Championship matches below like the Sinkfield Cup or anything like that. It's still, we still chose to do commentary on all the games, right? So the match is one of the more fun events of the year for us to watch, but it's not Kasparov Karpov.
So, David, how about Queen B1 and the very basic G6?
Okay. Queen B1 and the very basic G6. Does that make sense, folks? Like, no World Championship match is truly trash on the scale of the year it's played in. But a World Championship match, some of them will be talked about in 100 years and some of them won't be, right? Like Kostya and I at least did not know that there was a Steinitz-Gunsberg match until we did our research. And you could imagine 100 years down the road, there's some potential that, people might not talk about some of the 12-game drawn matches of our era. Whereas right now, of course, there's nothing more exciting for us to do than watch them. And of course, they're great players playing great moves,
Yeah, and it is a world championship with an asterisk next to it, and it's still a pretty fun match. Doesn't mean,
Yeah. What will be
Okay.
remembered in 100 years? I don't know, MC. To me, none of the 21st century matches were compelling. So history will have to say.
I think, Kramnik Kasparov, that was a great match, too.
Yeah, I think Kramnik Kasparov will probably be remembered to some extent, though maybe not really the games very much, but
Oh, are you
just the
kidding me?
story.
Those are some amazing games.
Sure. Amazing
It's
games.
because you despise the end games. Doesn't mean they're terrible.
All right, so Queen B1, G6.
I don't see anything. So I think Queen B1 is just another superficial attempt.
Could you play D5 now? There's still Rook B8 coming, huh? Interesting.
Okay, one more idea, David. I don't believe in this, but let's check it out. Let's try Queen B3.
Okay, Queen B3.
I feel like there's so many different moves here that you could mess with me with. Even Rook B8 might mess with my coconuts. But anyways, and the obvious question is, well, what if you just hit me with Rook A3? And I didn't actually have a great answer to said question.
To Rook A3.
Yeah, I didn't have a great answer. I was just pointing out that this is also a cheapo merchant possibility with our knight C8 idea.
Yeah. I agree with Dances with Boars, one of the most memorable games of the World Championship matches recently was the Nepo Carlsen Game 6. That was an epic one. We watched that one live. Does stand out a bit. Yeah, I don't see what to do for Gukesh. I don't think he really does either. I mean, I could go look at his player cam, but it probably won't tell me anything. He'll probably be pretty stoic.
We might actually get our first short draw, dude, because it's almost like if white, all these cheapo merchant moves, they lead to nothing. And so otherwise we're going to see DC, and then that just seems like full liquidation.
Mm-hmm. Wait. What about queen c6?
Yeah, I was looking at that too, but I also didn't understand why that would be different.
What happens there? CD?
Let's do CD as a first question, sure.
Knight c8?
Queen, I don't know, let's put it on A3.
Mm-hmm.
Looks fine.
It's not very hot in here.
It's not very hot here.
You may keep your clothes. Rook
Okay,
d3.
let's revisit the obvious thing just to make sure we're not
Queen
missing
b4.
Yeah. Let's try, David, let's try Queen A7, just the very basic DC again. So we both thought that DC and then Rook D1, Rook D1, Rook A5 is where we stopped. But let's just give it a half a second.
Okay.
Just to see if there's any dirty tricks we might pull out of our hat here. And we're saying that Knight C8, Rook B5, Knight A7, Rook C5 is completely over. So, is there any way to be a trickster? Well, that's called liquidation, my friend. Liquidation. I'm not seeing anything. No. If I was white, though, this is the kind of thing I'd be burning my time, trying to find some kind of dirty trick.
Yeah. Wow.
And then
Queen A7. Not obvious that it would be this good.
I'm pretty sure he had other moves. I'm pretty sure he had other moves too, dude. You know. Yeah. Ding and chill, bud. Ding and chill.
Against Queen B1, what did you do again? Queen B1, Rook A6, maybe?
Yeah,
probably. No, not Rook A6. Wow, we've got a lot of moves we've tried here. G6, that was the one.
That was a no comprendo right there. In general, I want to put the pawns in the opposite color of my bishops. That's why G6, probably H6.
All right, Queen B1, G6, G4.
Nah, boss. Nah. We're not going to entertain that. Sorry, buddy. I'm sorry, man. But we can't. We can't do it, dude. There's a little pride left in me, David. You know, there's a little pride left.
Well, I don't have any, so defend. Or, I mean, counterattack, you know.
I don't know.
Oh, we got half as many people watching as previous matches. I guess people have a feeling it's going to be a draw. The feeling is general.
Oh, I wanted to tell you a story. So yesterday I watched Naka's recap, and of course he's full engine. And he's missing all of the main ideas, dude. Just because he's letting the engine lead him.
Mm-hmm.
But what I wanted to say was interesting about our stream is we both thought black was better. And I have a feeling the players also thought black was better.
Mm-hmm.
But what was true is that the computer really did like the computer mostly liked black a little bit better, but it really did value the bishop so much, like the computers often do,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the fact that dude had a bishop, it was like, oh, you know, he's not completely toast,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So it was It was less than our evaluations. But honestly, and also the computer liked the rook e4 thing that Ding did. It was just like, oh, that's got to be done.
Mm-hmm. It did have to be done at that point, right?
I mean, but it was so scary. And then also, it like, remember where Ding kind of, or Gukesh released the tension after knight f3,
Mm-hmm.
and he could have played bishop g6, and
Yeah.
so that apparently was the move. I didn't even know what White was going to do after bishop g6.
Bishop g6 was the move.
Yeah,
So we were
I mean,
right about things.
we of course we were right about a bunch of things. Yeah.
So you're saying Naka misses all the main points and his recaps are no good?
Well, what he's not seeing he's just letting the computer tell him uh, what was happening,
Right.
right? So you don't actually see what any kind of thinking process was.
Right. So the recap's no good.
No bueno.
No bueno. I just wanted to hear you make it clear. No bueno. All right. Okay. I played G4, Jesse. Good story.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not entertaining G4. Gukesh. I think maybe he should just start off the next game with G4. I think Gukesh 4, dude.
All right. Your move, Jesse.
I'm not doing it, dude. I have a little pride left. I have a little pride left. And if you force me to, I'll just play H6 on move 22, just so I don't have to see G4.
Really? So you're going back?
I'm not going to entertain the G4 thing, dude. I will entertain all kinds of nonsense, but the Gukesh 4, I can't do it.
All right. You're switching to H6.
Which is hilarious because now I can't take on C5 as easily, and then you're gonna be like, all right, Kraai, now we really gotta go. Oh man. Now, by the way, so just one of the things I said in the video, David, that I think is very true.
Yeah, now I can take on C5, right? You don't have rook A5 anymore.
Let me give you my rant. I think something that's very true now is that Gukesh has, especially if he wins this match, has reinvented how to play chess in the same way that when Carlsen reinvented chess, and that he didn't take what GMs previously thought of as draws and he just played them out, right? So he added life into the game that way. Gukesh, dude, he doesn't care if he's worse. He'll play on.
Mm-hmm.
And so it adds this whole new layer. So, for example, here, I feel like the game would, like, if we were watching somebody else, me and you would both be getting ready to just start our days. But we know that dude is going to try to do something weird, even if he's worse, dude. Even if he's worse, he's going to try to do this madness. So, like, your G4 thing, I think, is abysmal. It might actually happen.
But I mean, if you want to do commentary on this match, then that's what you have to humor me, because Gukesh will play some of my moves that you don't like.
Yeah. Okay.
So H6, you just collapse. I take on C5 and you resign, right? So you may have to go back to G6.
I don't think it's even resigns yet, dude, because I can take on C5 still and rook D8, bishop. Yeah, I'm still fine.
Bishop F8, Queen B4.
Okay, you got me one.
You know about that thing. It's come up before.
All right, David, here we go. Queen B1. He says, if I've signed up for this, I got to do it. I can't do it,
yeah. Or, I mean, you could go do something lame, like making breakfast for your kids and leave the internet to watch Naka.
All right, so G6, Bob. G6 and David was play G4.
I forced Jesse's hand. Now, chat asked, what's the point of G4? And correctly guessed.
Good question, chat.
Correctly guessed, we're going to disturb the knight F6 with G5. That's it.
And then what, buddy? And then what?
Well, the knight's going to have to go somewhere.
And then I don't E8, and then what? You've just weakened yourself to no end. And that's why I'm like, David, buddy, we don't have to do this to ourselves. All right. So, all right. G4, I'll play the very simple and basic. Let's just go rook A6.
Rook A6. I feared that. That's the best move, I think.
I have a feeling I have other moves, but okay. Rook A6.
I know you're. I had a feeling you would say that, but you know.
Now White can ask himself, why did I play G4? McManus makes a good point. And actually, I'll say, we have a vid guy who's in France. And so we are trying to pump out the videos quickly as well. But yeah, Hikaru, we had him on the stream, I don't know, what, a year and a half ago or something. Yeah. And he talked about how in the recaps, he's like, it's for the algo. It got to be super fast, So he is cranking them out. Yeah. And, just doing a little bit of watching the computer. Yeah, David, I think the G4, bud. Put that back in the box, bud. Put G4 back in your pants, buddy.
All right. Rook A6 hoses me.
I'm sure there are other moves.
No,
okay,
that's the move.
Okay. So Queen A7, and we think normal people here would just say to themselves, screw it. I don't have much. We'll just play DC and it's going to be a draw. But Gukesh, dude, he has surprised us again and again, and he is desperately trying to find some way to keep this game going.
Okay. MC found something slightly interesting, Jesse. Let's have a look at this. Queen B1, G6, D takes C5, Rook D1, Rook D1, Bishop C5, Rook D8 check, King F8, Rook A8. Or sorry, I may have said King F8 instead of G7.
Mm-hmm. Rook A8.
Yeah.
Well, my default there could be Rook A1.
Queen
A1.
no,
they have Queen A1. Okay, clever.
Because Rook A8 looks like it's just looks like it's just nailing black, but let's double check before we go along because there's, Queen B6 and Rook A1 and Bishop F2 and Queen A8 and who knows.
Oh, that's clever, dude. That's clever. That's clever. Okay. No, that was good. Okay, let's try that again. Queen B1 seems very implausible, but let's give it a try. Mm-hmm. And we've gotten rid of H6, and maybe we've gotten rid of G6. That was pretty clever. Okay.
Okay, G6. Let's take again and just take a look here.
Mm-hmm.
So, against Bishop C5, there's Rook takes Rook check. And Rook D1, there's not a lot of choices after Rook D1. You go Rook D1 and then maybe like Rook A6 or Rook A5 or something. Right, extricate the Rook. Let's try Rook A6.
Right, because Rook A5, I mean, C6 looks like a thing.
Yeah.
But Rook A6, okay, I get it. A6. I don't believe in Rook A6. I mean, it's really scary. I got Queen B5 as a move.
Rook A5.
That's your intention.
Yeah.
Huh. That would be. Right. And in that position, let's just say White's big problem is he has no targets on the king side because our pawns are on the light squares. So you're just sitting there and spinning.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Oh,
looks
with the
reasonable.
rooks off the board, there is knight c8 here.
Thought I had it, but then I have queen c5.
Good call. Mm-hmm. And queen b7.
Oh, wow, you guys are finding things today.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So queen b1, maybe with a little coconut touch.
Okay, so g6, dc5. Okay, let's try rook b8 for a momentito. And let's push c6.
Rook b8 out of that.
Rook c7, rook b6, c7.
Or just queen takes b6, then c7.
Okay.
But
why is rook takes d1 played in so many lines? Well, the basic move for black when white plays dc5 is to trade on d1 to deflect the c1 rook from defending the c5 pawn. I think that's why we see it so much. Also, if you let white take on d8, your bishop will be forced back to f8, taking the pressure off of the c pawn as well. So, yeah, rook b8 was suggested. We just tried that, right? Rook b8, c6 with a promotion tactic. Looks very nice. Queen c7, there's queen a2. Almost any move, there's c7. Bishop d8, trying to blockade. I presume there'd be rook d8, c7. Just a basic, opposite colored bishop, so you sack in exchange and take over the color squares we need. And as for why we're playing g6, yeah, to get rid of the back rank. That's exactly right, blib up. After white plays queen b1, it's also because after white plays queen b1, there's a little bit of tension where black can't take on d4 yet.
because of my cheapo merchant, knight c8. Yeah. Okay, so MC is saying on queen b1 that rook a5 still seems to be totally fine.
Okay, so then I would say knight c4, Jesse. I'm just going to bring it around to e5, right? So knight c4, the rook's got to go somewhere like a4 or a6. Don't really care too much what you do. Actually, the rook almost doesn't have anywhere to go if I pursue it with my light squared bishop. That's
And let's
weird.
just say this, that on rook a5, knight c4, white is definitely still going to play. Because what we were looking at before was what white might be just done. But queen b1 is looking like we're just trying to keep the game going. The variety of things black can do. And rook a5, if it's the best move, then we'd say knight c4. And yeah, we're still in the game because knight e5 is a hell of a drug, at least as an idea.
I mean, knight e5, maybe like rook c8. But there's some tension in this position, basically.
Oh, yeah.
There's still some tension here.
Yeah. For sure. And your back rank isn't fixed.
Yeah. I mean, definitely, like, this position after queen b1, the natural moves would be, like, g6 and h6. Or if Gukesh were playing black, maybe g5.
Queen b1 played, dude, after 30 minutes of thought.
Queen b1 played. 31 minutes. We called it.
Oh, dang, dude. Well, actually, I just want to say...
Instantaneous rook b8.
Instantaneous rook b8.
What?
And kind of interesting is Grapsus Galoy said, new idea, queen b1, rook b8, dc, rook a5,
Yeah.
c6, rook c5. Oh my
Ding played
gosh.
rook a6 immediately, by the way. But okay, let's look at that rook a5 for a second before we go on. So we had
Six.
this idea of maybe playing c6 there, and he would go rook c5. And yeah, I would probably take that. Takes. My knight's in trouble. I can't push c7.
Now, that might all be true, but doesn't rook a6 actually solve the grief? Because now, no matter what happens, I'm going to play bishop c5 and just take your coconut.
That is the claim. That is the claim. A move like queen d3 might forestall that for a moment.
Okay, let's look at that queen d3 because that's the
Okay.
only idea I have too. So let's say bishop c5. Now maybe I could do something else. Very importante to say. Actually, when you think about it, queen d3, then I could play g6 too.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm in no hurry. But even there, if I play bishop c5, uh, rook c5, rook a b6.
Sorry. Where are you? Queen d3 what?
Okay.
G6?
So queen d3, I think g6 is fine, but I also wanted to point out, I think bishop c5 can also be played.
Okay. So let's play it.
So rook c5,
Rook c5.
and then queen b6.
And then rook c6.
Oh no, let me play rook a b6.
Okay, rook a b6, queen d8.
Knight e8.
Knight e8. Arrgh, you fiend.
And the problem is your bishop isn't helping, right? Your
I
bishop
know. Ah.
I do appreciate being called a fiend, though. I like that.
Yeah.
But I want to stress on queen d3, also g6 or something, and it's still not clear how we deal with stuff because the knight on b6 and the pawn on c5 are in dark squares, but the dark squares are whites or black
Or
squares.
blacks, yeah. That's not true, Kronduga. Ding was not going to self-destruct. It would have been helpful for Gukesh if he had a way to keep the tension, because it would be more pressure on Ding, but we can't say Ding was going to self-destruct. I mean, he's been in much worse situations than this the last 2 days. All right, rook a6.
Well, what's interesting about what Kronduga is saying is that the surprising thing that's happened is Ding has been bailed out of his time pressure by some kind of forcing sequence every single time. So he hasn't been punished for his wild things. Now, that's not to say we have a better move for Gukesh. I feel like in the last white game he played, when he played Rook A5, that did allow a long sequence that got him out, and that was a choice that we could talk about with time pressure. But here, I don't, he's just playing to get a little something, something, and it's a hard road.
Yeah. Man, queen d3, bishop c5. Okay, so black's plan is to take on c5, whatever we do. Ay. think Jesse stepped away for a second. I'm going to go through some bad moves while he's not here. Bishop c5. I'm going to play immediate queen d8. And I'm going to take it. And take. And here. I'm going to play knight c8. Man, queen d7. It looks like the only move here, queen d7. No, yeah, maybe. Jesse might say he's got 100 other options.
You guys have gone down some dark path here.
Yeah.
Play rook a1 too. I don't know.
Maybe rook a1 too. Okay, let me try something else. I'll double the rooks.
David, can you remind us how you got to this crazy thing?
I played queen d3.
Mm-hmm.
And then after dc5, after bishop c5, I played queen d8 check immediately without rook takes c5. So I played...
But then I don't even have to take. I could play bishop f8.
Right. Then I was going to play some move to the 8th rank, kind of trying to block things up, right? Like, I don't know, rook c8 maybe. And then rook c8, knight c8. I was trying to come in.
Queen c5.
Yeah, maybe knight c8 instead of rook c8.
Maybe knight c8 first, right? And then my queen actually doesn't have the greatest amount of squares.
In fact, she's checkmated.
She's checkmate to the queen.
Yeah.
That's a fun position right there.
Yeah, that was my original idea, but then rook takes queen, rook check, bishop here, and I haven't quite made this work. Knight c8, queen d7, and I guess maybe also rook a1, but if I go rook d1, there's queen d1 check. Maybe also queen c7. And I've tried very hard.
You are trying very hard, but
I've tried. I have tried to keep chess alive.
Gukesh is trying real hard too, man.
Yeah.
He's trying real hard.
Yeah, he's my inspiration, Jesse. No, I was always like
better.
this.
He's had better positions as black, dude.
There's no way this is good for white. There's just no way.
And we have to say the other obvious thing on like queen d3. I think g6 is just the simplest. You know, we're going to take on c5 anyway. So,
right, we haven't even looked at g6.
Yeah.
My intention there was to maybe try knight d7, but I don't think it works. Or no, was I maybe going to try c6 then?
Yeah, you at least you could think about C6. True. You could think about it. Um, can anyone give the timestamp for the most recent interview of the game that's so far? Well, we're kind of here. Uh, oh, David's.
I'm just trying out some moves here.
We're just trying out some moves. Basically, my friends, we are looking at what seems to be a completely drawn position, but Gukesh will not accede to a draw and will rather, I think, make his position dangerous. He will take a risk. He will actually probably go into a slightly worse position rather than take a draw just to keep the game going. That's my new take on Gukesh, dude.
My C6 did not work. Not at all. Not a bit.
Well, it doesn't surprise.
Yeah. And just to confirm my knight d7 move, black can go knight takes d7, queen takes d7, bishop takes c5, I think. With one of the deader positions known to chess.
Deader. I'm deader.
Yeah.
My name is Deader. He's trying. David, have you been watching like the post-game interviews and any of the other recap people?
No.
No.
You think I'm a billionaire of time?
Yeah, I haven't watched that many either. Um, it's interesting because there's so many people doing recaps and the streaming and stuff, and
Yeah.
I'm thinking like somebody out there has got to be doing something interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so far it's just a bunch of chumps. Yeah, the take recaps with Magnus and Levy, I was hoping that that would be cool, but those have been awful, dude. You know, they yeah.
What do they do?
They're really long and they really don't focus on the game. There's a lot of generalities and like Levy is just like, well, I don't know, blah 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 blah. And Magnus will make some generalizations. Um, then I think if the show's interesting, it's like Magnus will sometimes say something interesting, but you got to wade through a bunch of other blah blah, kind of like the way the post game interviews have been. There's these people asking these ridiculous questions, and then just like, but and actually, it was the one I watched the interview the day before yesterday, and somebody asked a ridiculous question about I don't know, and Ding was like, yeah, somebody asked that yesterday. I can't take it. Can't take it.
Gotcha.
Okay, let's agree to a draw, Gukesh. This is part of your maturation process, Gukesh. You just have to know when to hold them and when to fold them, when to walk away and know when to run.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can't be counting your money when you're sitting at the table, son. There'll be time enough for counting, David,
Mm-hmm.
when the dealing's done.
Okay. Fair enough. What about for sleeping? Will there be time for sleeping tonight?
Oh yeah, there's gonna be a lot of time for sleep. And we get a rest day tomorrow. Ding gets a rest day. He needs a rest
Yeah.
day, dude.
I was
This
looking
is
forward
actually a
to that today.
great this is I would say it's a great result for Ding. He was under pressure the last two games, holds this draw easily,
Mm-hmm.
and gets to rest. And
Yeah.
I think it's interesting with Ding, man, because he still hasn't found his confidence yet. But I feel like the longer, like it's such a weird thing, right? Like if I imagine peak Ding, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm like Gukesh doesn't. I mean, I would peak Ding against Gukesh. I'll take Ding, I'll take Ding, right? Ding with confidence. I don't. No one knows still what's going on with. I don't think he knows why he's lost his confidence. Um, but you have to imagine that the longer the match wears on, the more just like the fight or flight business of chess, just get you in there in the scrum of things. You're the more chances you're eventually going to find yourself and not take that draw like he does the first time in the London and other situations.
Right. So here's a variation that doesn't work. C6, rook A, B6, C7, rook B1, C8 equals queen, bishop F8, and we've hung the knight on B6 while turning our queen into a pawn into a queen. It was fancy, but we're just down a knight at the end.
Yeah. That's right. That was a fancy one.
Then queen D3, G6. Here's an example of how Gukesh might play. E3, bishop takes C5, knight C4. And just, I'm not saying he's got anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Straight zeros.
Well,
But
that's a good variation, David. I can imagine him playing that out.
but
Yeah.
he can keep moving pieces around
Mm-hmm.
according to his principle. Um,
And I was going to say about an hour ago that I like these positions with E3 for white. If there were more pieces on the board, we could just say that just a nice configuration for the pawns and the bishop.
yeah. Now again, after queen D3, there's also bishop C5. There we don't really have anything.
Oh, got nothing, but
And this way we can't keep our knight because F2 is hanging, I think.
mm-hmm.
And if you have to go rook C5, queen takes B6, rook C6, sorry, rook A takes B6. Here, unfortunately, you've got the bishop versus the knight on the king side. That's really not very playable, in my opinion. Like, I don't think that that's going to appeal to Gukesh.
It says Dig is just claiming his daily 0.8 rating increase. It's true, man. He's coming back in. He's already climbed a couple spots in the ladder.
Yeah.
David, had you heard the term ladder anxiety? Ladder anxiety.
No.
Yeah, that was a new one to me
What
too.
is it?
So I did the grad show yesterday. I'll do the grad show again today. And it's when it's a gamer thing, but then he was applying it to chess. And so, and I've seen this actually with a couple of the other younger players, and it's just like the fear of playing. So they don't play. Sometimes they'll study, but they won't play games, and it's
Oh, because in
because
some games, like the ladder is the
yeah, there's a
rating
ladder.
system. So it's just the
There's
same
a
thing
ladder.
as like people being afraid of rated games.
Right, but I feel like
Yeah.
it's different for this younger generation than it was for us with anyways. So anyways, that's a new word for me, ladder.
People have always been afraid of losing their points or even just, letting
Yeah.
people see that they're not the geniuses they want to be. It's
But I'm
always
just
been
saying,
like that.
I'm seeing it more, especially in that grad show. I'm seeing like, oh yeah, there's some people who are legitimately just terrified of playing.
What were we playing here? We're going queen d8, knight e8, and then rook c8. And the reason I didn't follow this line any further before was rook c8, queen c8, rook b8. That's why I had never looked into this. So, have you seen, Jesse, that Abdusadarov is having a hard time right now in the Opens?
No.
He's shed a few rating points, like 2 Opens in a row.
Actually, I didn't see that he had dropped and that was fascinating because otherwise Gukesh would have fallen below him.
Yeah, well, he played the President's Cup in Uzbekistan, which was like 100 million underrated Uzbekis and Indians. It was like just the
Uh-huh.
worst tournament to play in the entire world.
Yeah.
For anyone who cares about their rating. I mean, it was probably a super fun tournament for everybody who wanted to play chess, right?
Yeah.
But it's just like a procession of players rated 23, 2400 who are like super GMs, basically.
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so, I mean, he did fine. He finished in like whatever, fifth or sixth place. But he lost a few points. And now he's playing in the Qatar Open. And in the first round, he had the misfortune of getting paired with another Uzbeki player, I think, in Qatar. Got raked over the coals. Oh no, it was an Iranian in the first round in Qatar.
Mm-hmm.
Some 2300 rated Iranian destroyed him with black. I saw the game, by the way. I played over it. It was absolute brutality. King's Indian defense, the kid brought. Reza Madavi.
But and then
Slaughtered
that
him.
makes Bobby's achievement even more striking because he's also playing all these people.
Right.
And he beat Shanklin last night, dude,
Yeah.
and beat all these other lower rated. Today he has to face Theodoru again.
Yeah.
And that's kind of fun because Theodoru beat him
Yeah.
in Charlotte. And
A
uh,
week ago.
he even still won rating points in Charlotte.
Yeah.
So
So,
Fabi is, dude, he's showing that this can be done. It's dangerous.
yeah.
It's dangerous, but now he's definitely number two for clear number two now,
It's
dude.
very dangerous. And
Number two.
certainly, and Abdusadarov, even after losing the first round, he couldn't win in the second round in the loser's bracket. That's how tough some of these opens are now. So if you look at the rating list, you'll see that Anand at 2750, he's sitting very pretty. Wei and Nepo recently played in the Bundesliga, drew some 2500s. They're almost dropping below Anand. They stopped playing for their teams out of fear of dropping out of the top 10. And even Noterbeck is like one or two games away from dropping below Anand if he keeps playing in this open all the way to round 9.
Oh, you also, dude. I just looked. Kostya won last night against the famous Justice Williams.
Nice.
He's still not having a great event, but Justice Williams is even having a worse one.
Right.
Kostya, by the way, if you're just watching, guys, or just joining, he is playing the same event that
That Fabi is in.
Bob is playing out there in St. Louis.
Yeah.
And no one can really explain how the circuit points work, but this is the next for a spot in the next World Championship. And it looks like it's between Bobby and Aragaisi at the moment.
And Aragaisi's in the running over at the Qatar Open. So, oh, we've got to move from Gukesh. Queen B5, finally.
Queen B5.
21 and a half minutes, and this move probably runs into both Bishop C5 and Rook A5, but let's have a quick look-see, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, should we look at Rook A5 first?
We can. I just want to give a quick update. So it is, even though these circuit points are very hard to understand, Arjun and Fabi are exactly tied right now at 114.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. But then Fabi is probably going to get some more points for the St. Louis Masters thing and go up. All right. Queen B5.
It's all about winning the tournament, Jesse, actually. Like, the tournament that Aragaisi is at is much stronger. But if he doesn't get first place, right? If he gets second place with like a much higher performance rating and Fabi gets first place in some soft American tournament, then Fabi, I think it's all about getting first place. He'll rake in all the points.
Well, to be fair to Fabi,
we'll find out when it happens.
When you look at the list, his latest two tournaments you could call soft, but before that it was U.S. Championships, Sinkfield Cup, this GCT Courage. He was playing the real thing. It was a real thing.
No, I'm not trying to like malign him in any way with that word. I'm just saying the one tournament Aragaisi is playing this week is much tougher than the one tournament that Fabi's playing. That's all. But I think that the points reward first place more than strength of event. So that's all I'm saying. I think if Fabi gets first place, that would trump like a second or third place for Aragaisi. But the rules are complicated, so I could be wrong about that.
Well, right. That's one of the things as a fan. We got to do a talk about this at some point because
Yeah.
it's very hard to follow. I'm sure it's possible for a fan to figure it out,
Yeah.
but like fans need something that like I see at a glance and I get it. So like here, I'm just seeing a bunch of points. I have no idea how they're calculated or anything, you know. Bishop C5 played. I'm expecting a draw here quickly.
Okay, Bishop C5 played. Queen C5 played. Yeah, it doesn't look like there's anything to be done. Queen B6 played. Ding comes out of the cocoon. You guys are not going to be able to see our eval bar anymore. I'm taking the last 0.04 off of the evaluation. I was keeping the bar visible for a moment there.
No. David, I gotta go wake up my kids, dude.
All right, do it.
I will see you on Saturday morning.
Yep.
Actually, I'll stay with you just a half a second longer because I'm watching the live stream with Queen takes B6. Ding is looking up at him. Hey, Bows, it's time.
They're looking, yeah.
It's time, Bows.
Time for the look.
Oh yeah, Gukesh just looking over towards the arbiter, like maybe you want to come over here, buddy.
He's not allowed to offer a draw because they're not at move 40.
Oh, that's true.
So he's like, what do you guys want me to do with this stupid situation, right?
Well, players, what they can do is after like, a queen trade happens and G6 happens, and they just go back and forth. They understand.
Mm-hmm.
They get it.
Okay, he's traded on B6.
No, come on. Oh, and Rook C6 happens.
Rook C6. That makes sense. Yeah.
All right, boss. I gotta go. This is a draw. I will see you Saturday morning. And you're gonna get a little rest today. This is not your epic day. And you get a rest tomorrow.
Tomorrow's a rest day, so maybe we'll have like a dojo meeting. Maybe I'll see you tomorrow, right?
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
I'll be awake during daytime hours for once, I guess. Tomorrow.
Yeah. Get some sleep, bro. All right. Yeah. Bye, buddy.
All right. Bye. Okay, folks. So Jesse probably correctly suggesting that the best I can get out of this round is some sleep. What do you think? Should we cut it off here? Or you guys want to watch the next 10 moves? There's a good chance, we were talking about this FIDE circuit, there's a good chance that both Arjun and Fabi will qualify for the next candidates, right? One way or another. There's going to be 8 spots in that candidates. And Arjun and Fabi each have a pretty good chance at the rating spot at number 2 or number 3 or 4 or so, Spinal Tap would play on with both sides against a kid, yeah. Fair enough. H3 is important because if you go E3, black can play knight G4 and attack your F pawn painfully. And if you go bishop F3, they could play G4. Your bishop has to move away and the H pawn gets stuck at H2. So H3 is a good move. Gukesh is a kid, it's true, but he's not like a normal kid. He's extremely good in endgames. So, I mean, Spinal Tap chess, you would not beat Gukesh in this endgame. I would also slightly prefer black, like you, to have the knight at this phase of the game, but I think at this level it doesn't really matter much at all. Yeah, among the 8 spots for the next candidates, there's 1 spot for this year's circuit, 1 spot for next year's circuit, 3 spots for the World Cup, which is dumb. Maybe 2 spots for the Grand Swiss and 1 spot for rating, or 1 spot for the Grand Swiss and 2 spots for rating. Something like that. I'm hearing like the sound of a clock being pressed. I must have sound on the video stream. Yeah, I do. Okay, h5, rook a1, rook c2, bishop b5. He could go like rook here and stuff. The bishop can come to d3. Honestly, I think they would just want to repeat around here somehow. It's not much to do. A standard 10-year-old kid, you would have great winning chances, yeah. Gukesh versus Arjun would be a great match at any point this year, next year, or in 2 years. A great match to see. Now, there's a wealth of good players now. You know, there's more good players than ever before. I think they just need to improve the tournament formats a little bit. You know? Like when I say that I preferred the World Championship matches from 30, 40 years ago, the players now are better, right? When I prefer the tournaments from 30, 40 years ago, or 50 years ago, or 80 years ago, the players now are better. So the issue is the formats, you know? The issue is the incentives. The issue is players making 10-move draws again and again in the Berlin, and no organizer or anybody figuring out what to do about it. You know, but the potential is there to have just epic chess all the time. These open tournaments are exciting, right? That Abdusadarov and Aragaisi are playing. So yeah, they should just switch to Chess 960 and everything would be solved. And if not, then they need to make some adjustments to who they're inviting and how they run the rating system and so forth, you know, and how the points are, how the money is provided, you know, like they need to get rid of the appearance fees and have bigger prizes, you know, make the players really play for wins that way. And if they're running closed tournaments, and they have to be inviting ambitious players and not established players. And they have to use like a system for who they're picking based not on the FIDE rating, but based on the performance in the last year, or some kind of, you know, Grand Prix points or something like that. There's this idea that I had that you would make it so that closed tournaments are qualified into by the open tournaments. So if you're going to have a closed tournament like the Sinkfield Cup, there'd be guaranteed spots in there for the people who won 4 or 5 big opens before that. Because, you know, whoever wins the Qatar Open, you know, whoever wins the Sharjah Masters, you know, that's like a hot player, and you just want to get them into the next closed tournament. So anyway, there's all kinds of ideas, and we've got the best crop of chess players the world has ever seen currently, in my opinion, but the tournaments are often a little bit lame despite that. I mean, me personally, Sean, I don't like more rating spots. I prefer qualification spots. The qualification just has to be logical, right? And the World Cup is determined by a bunch of 2-game rapid and blitz matches. That's what's like stupid about it. But if you had well-organized tournaments, those would be better than FIDE ratings, which often reflect, you know, how good somebody was 4 years ago. It's just not right. It's too slow to react, the FIDE rating system. It gives people an incentive to not play versus playing. That's the other problem with rating spots. Like if you're Fabi, you would not be playing any of the tournaments he's playing right now if it were rating spots. And some of these top players play like 10 games or less in a year. It's just, I mean, what's the point of being a chess player, a professional chess player, if you don't even play? 3 cup spots is terrible because the World Cup is stupid, basically, you know. But if those 3 spots were from some other set of tournaments, it could make sense, Sean Hunter. Like, imagine they, you know, had some form of candidates tournaments, or had more of the Grand Swiss, right? The Grand Swiss is a cool tournament. I'm not saying this is the best system, but just like an obvious improvement. You have 3 more Grand Swisses, you know, and each one has a rating spot. That would be better than the World Cup. Acratic says that in the last 12 months, Arjun has played 130 games. It's probably like 10 times more than Nepo or Anand. And his performance rating is 28-27. It's a good performance rating. Right around Magnus's probably for the last year. And I think Gukesh and Abdusattorov would probably be close behind, although not with the last 2 weeks for Abdusattorov or Gukesh. They're both being dragged down by their current events. The Grand Prix was a good idea as well, Nicolas. The problem with the Grand Prix was they invited 10 players at a time, and they invited really boring players who were just sitting on their FIDE ratings and making hundreds of draws. So it was like they decided it was very expensive to run a bunch of tournaments that were so lame that nobody really watched them. And because the qualification was spread out over the full Grand Prix, after 1 or 2 events, there would only be like 2 or 3 players who were competing for the candidate spot, and the other players were just sitting around doing nothing. So it is a cool idea, and I'm sure it could be arranged in a good way. But somehow the way they ran the Grand Prix, it truly wasn't that awesome. Yeah, you could do something like rating plus games played, or some kind of formula including ratings and games played. But any system like that will be gameable. If possible, I would prefer a good series of events. Okay, so we're getting some action. Gukesh plays f4, initiating potential pawn trades. Ding was going to put the knight on e5 and say your bishop's kind of out of good squares to go to. Of course, white could always play rook a3, and you're not going to win a 4-on-4 rook endgame. So at their level, these moves almost don't matter, and I have to unfortunately say maybe h4 would be the question here. So let's have a quick look at that. h4. If you take, then black takes, and suddenly they've got a beautiful 3-on-1, which is crushing. So you'd probably be busted. So you'd probably have to go fg5. Then on hg3, you have h4, I guess, followed by trying to collect this pawn, which you can probably do. Looks like they've played some moves pretty quickly, so they're not too unclear on what's going on. Trade on f4. Now the white king would like to come up and get closer to the pawns. Yeah, kind of no matter what happens, there's nothing near like a winning margin advantage here. I guess maybe Ding's intimating that knight c5 would be a small edge. Guki didn't kill the game with white today, Michel. He tried to get an advantage, and something didn't work out, and then it petered out. Exactly, Sean. That's how I normally think of it, as like a series of tiered events. If we want to get very specific, I have an article I posted on Medium with what I think is like the best possible world championship cycle, honestly. But it starts with like opens, and then the qualifiers from those opens go to like the next level of tournament that has, let's say players over 2,600, and then the top from that go to the next stage. So basically, it allows everybody to participate in some level of the event. So even if you're a low rating, but if you're really getting good, you can fight your way into it in theory. and but it forces everybody to play for the spots. The slightest bit nervous for white. Minus 0.1 wasn't enough for me to be nervous. I wouldn't be nervous here as white myself. I suppose we could blunder like rook a7 to c7 as a blunder. Call it interzonals. Yeah, very good idea. Okay, so Gukesh takes the split pawns in order to activate his king. And yes, we can definitely call this minus 0.1. On that, you are correct. That is totally fair to evaluate it like that. Next up, I think white would want to play rook a5 to have a moderately active rook and keep the black king at bay and keep black defending the h-pawn. Black could consider rook c2 here, trying to get to h2. Exactly, Sean. That's just like the disaster of it all, you know. I don't want to abuse the players by mentioning them. I understand it's just kind of how their financial incentives rack up for their lives. From their perspective, why fight really hard for on average the same amount of money when they can just show up, make these opening theory draws, and yeah, you know, they're tired of the whole thing. Zonals and interzonals as a system, Far Eastern, does slightly make things harder for people in tougher geographic areas, yeah. But, you know, if they couldn't win the zonal, they weren't going to win the world championship either, you know, so it's okay. And generally, it's sort of like 4 or 5 qualify at each stage, so, you know, saying you have to win is an exaggeration as well, right? Like, you just have to be in the top 4 or 5, which if you're a world championship candidate, you can finish in the top 5, you know. Right, Nepo could still qualify, right? Dubov would have a hot tournament. Nepo would finish 3rd in, like, you know, a Soviet sphere or Russia sphere event, and then he would still qualify for the interzonal, etc. Everyone at FIDE is a stupid head. It does sort of seem so, Rainbow Teddy, yeah. But that's kind of true for most of the world, right? Well, not the everyone part, yeah. Most everyone is a stupid head. You know, we're just not that smart, us monkeys, as we like to sometimes imagine we are. And yeah, I think, Antonio, we're going to do a dojo talk pretty soon about whether chess should employ an ATP style ranking. So, Chris O'Connor, your system sounds very much in the ballpark of what would be a good idea. So the idea here for Ding would be to go rook c2, rook h2, and then spread out the king's defense between these two pawns. He's been thinking for a while, which means he thinks there's some chance there's something. He's going to spend his effort looking at it. We are the least intelligent species capable of creating civilization. Yeah. I apologize, folks, if it's offensive. I've just lately been thinking about how dumb people are. Sorry. I think it's been this year in American politics that has got me thinking those things. Right, MC, that would be pushing it even further, right? I mean, the first thing you'd do is you'd get rid of appearance fees and make it based on how you do in the tournament. And the second thing would be maybe you change how the money is distributed within the tournament and make it weigh the money more towards winning. Exactly, Renga. ATP rankings are the last 365 days, so they're a rolling ranking based on how you did in tournaments over the last year. The most drawish position that you screwed up or converted into a win. Grapsus Galois, I have several times won rook and pawn against rook, and I once won king and rook against rook and pawn. So, pretty basic end games. If people knew Philidors, they weren't like specially, the king wasn't like cut off by 2 files or anything special. It wasn't even, like a trickier long side defense kind of situation. So just basic rook and pawn versus rook is, to me, the most drawish position that I've seen screwed up against me, because I think it's like a pretty well-known position in general, and we're talking, players over 2,000. Yeah, I agree, Nicolas, about the circuit points, and that's going to be another dojo talk really soon. We were sort of waiting to get to either, December or January. We'd planned to talk about the the circuit points, so we could see how it played out for a year and then have a discussion about it. But the idea in general kind of makes sense, and then the detail of how to weight the points might be something that they may have gotten wrong, but that's something that you can just edit the points. So, okay, rook c2. It was the move that we expected. If the king tries to cover both pawns, you're going to see the king can get stretched, right? Like rook d2, king e3, rook h2. The king can't cover both of them. So if like rook d2 got played, you would have to go like rook a3, defending the pawn with the rook. Then bring the king here. But now, overall, white's pretty passive with the rook like this, right? So black could consider some kind of plan activating the king. That's kind of where we're at here. One move from time control. Ding definitely has a micro advantage, yeah. You can see I'm not very emotional about it yet. Ugh. Mostly I'm... If white gave up the d pawn, would it still be a draw? Probably, but we have split pawns. It's a little annoying. One very reasonable idea here for white is rook g1, asking the king, do you centralize and give up the h pawn, or do you defend your h pawn and get cut off on the g file? If white traded the d, f, and h pawns for the e pawn, it would be a draw. Yes, that is true. So here's a suggestion. We could try and play actively like this. King here, maybe. Rook check, king here, h4, rook here, f4, rook h4, fe, trading a pawn. I'm getting pretty fancy pants here. But you can see this works out for white. So black would have to like trade back, and then you go here and you win. You win the draw. I mean, you don't. Nobody's winning. You can see nobody's winning. So that's a possible option for Gukesh here. He's played king f3, so I think he's just going to play rook a3 and be passive for the moment. The F and H pawn draw is not easy. I agree, Francois. A GM could mess it up, and a GM would definitely play it out. You're welcome, Pogmothon. Sorry if I'm not super inspired over these last moves here anymore, but if anyone has any questions about them, I'm feeling a little tired. When it's more exciting, that sort of like pushes away the fatigue, and you don't think about the fatigue. Now I'm like feeling a little tired as I kind of more or less know the game's going to end in a draw. The draw plan, Nicolas. I mean, I just showed you how I would try to draw this. And king f3 is different than me, but I would have tried this and then f5. Right? He goes king f3, so I think we're going to get rook d2, and then I think from here he's going to play rook a3, defending this pawn. Thank you, Pog. Thank you. So here I'm thinking rook a3, because if you bring the king back towards the d pawn, then rook h2, and you're too far apart. Right? Gukesh has definitely mishandled this a little bit. So I think rook a3 is the next move. By the way, folks, I just checked the live stream. Neither player is at the board. They're both not there. So don't expect Gukesh to show any drawing plan just yet. They can now agree to a draw after move 40. Maybe one of them went to the bathroom and the other went to the bathroom to try and find them and offer a draw now that they made move 40. Maybe they're trying to draw away from the board. All right, Far Eastern, that's exciting. That is super exciting. If you take away the white h-pawn, can white still draw? Like, probably yes, but you're going to make me do really hard work trying to figure that out. Right, I was thinking of Craddock. You're not that far from Singapore. I don't know if you've been checked out of the hospital yet, but you're in the area. I was just in the neighborhood. Let me just grab some water as I die here. He's played rook a3. I'm a GM today. Take it, sell out fast. Oh, that's good news, right, Far Eastern? That's good news for the excitement of chess. It's good if there's like a lot of live audience. So I think what you see here is a move like king g3, just kind of passive defense, holding these two pawns. And whenever the king comes up, sort of check him back, and then you come back to a3. So yeah, I think he just kind of sits. They're probably back at the board since some moves were made. Let me see if I can spot them. Gukesh is thinking. Yeah, he's just thinking. Just thinking. Vishy's in Singapore. That's exciting too. Okay, he's played Rook B3. Okay, sitting. I would have thrown this in, but I don't think there's probably anything wrong with it yet. So, this you can get checked back. H4, white has King G4. F6, E5, and trade a pawn. Or maybe you could take the first rank just to be a little further away from the king and be able to bother him on squares like F1 and G1. Yeah, he'll probably play Rook D1, I would think. If nobody has an advantage by 5 a.m., I think that's when I gotta try and get a nap in. Yeah. Oh, Jesse, it should have been you. You're on the East Coast. I guess that just means his kids got up before mine. Yeah, so it goes. Yeah, sorry, Achilles. This game proved to be far less interesting than the previous two. That happens in chess. That does happen. Not every game is juicy at the top levels. At lower levels, pretty much every game is juicy. So be glad, everybody, that you are not in a world championship match. Your games are probably more fun than theirs are. I'm in the Pacific time zone, California. So it's 4:48 a.m. Chat seems to be excusing me to go to bed. At what rating do draws start happening much more often? 2,500, I would say, Clarky. 2,500 FIDE. But yes, I agree with everybody mentioning that Fisher Random or Chess 960 produces a much higher percentage of juicy games, even for 2700s. It gives you a very, very good percentage of fun games. Even players like Dubov, if you look through their games, it's going to be like 50% boring draws when he plays other 2700s. Or I mean, not boring is a stretch, but like it's not juicy all the time. Not the game-ocratic, surely. Maybe the match, but here, you know, he's going to play rook a3. The game? The game? You have my phone number to call me if he gets an advantage so I can get up from bed? I'm giving it 8 more minutes. Sack a couple pawns, get the initiative. All right. And I'm going to close the cookie bag. Had 2 or 3 of those little stars wrapped in chocolate. They just give you a little boost, but also, you know, weird taste in your mouth when you go to bed. Banoffee pie. Banoffee pie. Bananas and caramel. I've never had that. I am willing to try it if the opportunity presents itself. Yeah, the only thing disappointing about the about this new Chess 960 or Fischer Random Circuit is that they call it something like freestyle chess instead of Fischer Random. Fischer Random is obviously a good name for Fischer Random chess, right? I mean, Fischer is a famous player who came up with it. Why not just, you know? But the event's fantastic one way or another. Oh, look at that. I've got some control over YouTube. I was able to stop the spamming of the moron. I didn't know if I had any control over the YouTube chat. That's nice. Yeah, maybe people are worried about the fact that Fischer went crazy. But I mean, like, a lot of top chess players went crazy, right? I think that we as a chess community have to sort of accept it. We don't need to, like, cancel a bunch of dead people. You know, stop reading Alyekhin's books of his best games because of, you know, the Nazi question or whatever. I mean, it's a draw, Francois. Black can try for king f5, h4, and rook h2. But whenever black plays king f5, there's rook check, right? I mean, it's logical to not read the political writings of someone because they're a Nazi. But because, like, a Nazi's unlikely to have good politics, right? But I think for chess players, you know, I mean, I have a pretty low opinion of Karpov as a person right now, but still study his games. E5. Trades rather quickly. What's wrong with Karpov? I mean, I don't know the most Socratic, but he is a member of the Russian Duma who voted to invade Ukraine. And I have, like, you know, a generally low opinion of war. It'd be hard for you to come up with a war that I was really pumped about. So, you know, I don't pretend to understand Russian politics, and so Gukesh trades off a couple pawns and then brings the king towards g2. They should be giving each other the look in the next minute or so. I don't pretend to have the deepest understanding of the Russian-Ukrainian conflict, or even any understanding of it. I'm not going to... You know, I'm not going to get deep into it because I got not too much to say, but you know, I don't think it's super awesome to vote for war, so... King comes into the corner, and la 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 la. Clear draw results. Anyone have any questions about the moves they just played here? Any questions about this sequence? Like, if the king backs up, black can't strengthen their position anymore, right? White would just come back here. So if black wanted to come forward, whenever they come forward, they're going to get checked. E5, white's going to trade a pawn. Okay, sorry, and the game's been drawn. Yeah, Karyakin got in trouble, Rennie, for his behavior around the Russian-Ukrainian war. We've discussed it on Dojo Talks. He seems like he's also, at minimum, a jerk, and at worst, you know, an absolute murderous psycho. But anyway. All right. Draw achieved. We'll add it to our score here. Which some of you will have noticed I have below the chessboard. I have the match score, which now has 6 draws in a row. It's not Caruana Carlson, but, you know, they are stabilizing a bit. Yeah, I'm going to go take a little nap before the kids get up. Tomorrow is a rest day, which means, yeah, Jesse and I will maybe do some other dojo stuff. And I think later today, he's going to do the Dojo Graduates show. For any of you who might be awake then, I plan to sleep through his graduates show.